and think to yourself, there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
There is no place like home, Diesel, except for if you are the South Carolina Gamecocks. That's where we're going in this very first segment, because it's been quite the opposite for the Gamecocks in 2024. There has been places like home. In fact, there has been places that's better than home. What do I mean? South Carolina has played a lot better in 2024 on the road than they have at home, and they need to flip that script on Saturday if they're going to take down the red-hot Aggies of Texas A&M. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. You heard Dorothy. You heard Diesel clicking his heels over there. And if you're on the stream, you got the pleasure of watching Diesel raise his legs in the air.
I don't know if I could do that again, man.
That was impressive.
I almost pulled a muscle.
That was as impressive as you balancing in the hallway earlier on that board before the show started. You're really showing off your athleticism.
I'm glad that you didn't see me chipping wiffle balls in the hallway too, because you would have changed your mind about my athleticism.
Well, you're 2 for 0 right now. You're 2-0. So
I want to talk myself into a loss.
Yeah, quit while you're ahead. Speaking of talking yourself into a loss, Diesel, that's what the Gamecocks can't do. They have not, for whatever reason, this season played well at home. They've played a lot better on the road than they have at home. I mean, I remember all the way back to the Old Dominion game, right? I was there. It was an uninspiring performance. Obviously, Akron, fast forward several weeks later, Akron, you didn't have your quarterback. It was still a blowout because Akron sucked. But LSU, you didn't play the best at home that day. You played well enough to win. But you look at other home performances, and the Gamecocks have been better. What is it about this team as they welcome in A&M? Let's pull back the curtain, Diesel. Let's preview how these teams match up against each other. But before we do that, Tolos, I want to let you know the text line 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Phone lines are open as well, 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. Diesel, why? In a place like Williams-Brice, let's answer the question before we pull the curtain back and look at this matchup. Why in a place like Williams-Brice Stadium, as electric as that place is and as loud as it gets at times before halftime, why does that not result in the home field advantage that you think it would thus far for the Gamecocks?
The only thing I can think of, Cole, is just a myriad of distractions when you're at home. You got players sleeping in their own beds, hanging out with their girlfriends, chasing down somebody else's girlfriends, going out partying, whatever it may be. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of possibilities here because, you talk about friendly confines. You talk about the ability to be comfortable and know your surroundings. And maybe those things take a team out of the business mindset that they are clearly in, that the South Carolina Gamecocks have clearly mastered when they're on the road. Phenomenal performance at Kentucky. Mm-hmm. They had a phenomenal performance on the road at Alabama. They had a really great defensive performance, not so much the offensive side of the ball, at Oklahoma, Cole, but overall you would look at that, at least just looking at the box score, and say, wow, that was a blowout win for the South Carolina Gamecocks.
You're right.
So there's just something. Who knows if it's on the coaching staff that are just not getting these guys focused for when they play at home at Williams-Brice Stadium. I can't put a finger on it exactly either, Cole, without being in that locker room and knowing, where are they at mentally when they're playing in Columbia, because it just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I do like your response about having the business-like approach on the road, because I think there is a lot of truth to that. I do think teams, Diesel, when they're able to go on the road and focus as a group better and have the preparation that goes into a road trip in the SEC. No, I do think there's added value there. Obviously, playing in tough SEC stadiums is still going to be the catalyst, right, that you have to overcome. But there is something to be said about what you just said about not having the distractions that sometimes you have at home.
So we've talked for years, Cole, about South Carolina's team lacking an identity. and you can have multiple identities on your team, right? I think Shane Beamer should be using the way they've performed on the road multiple times this year and really incorporate that into their identity as a football team and as a football program.
Yeah.
Our goal is we're going to come into your house and we're going to hit you in the mouth.
Yeah.
We may not walk out of every stadium we go to with a win, but we are not going to get blown out on somebody else's field. We're going to come in there and be the better football team on the field every single time we travel. So they need to have that chip on their shoulder going into next year, and as long as Shane Beamer is the head coach.
So when you look at this matchup, we've briefly mentioned the matchup thus far during the course of the week. Diesel, you and I have. But when we're talking about pulling the curtain back on these two teams and looking to see who really is the better team in our opinion, I think there's several factors. Obviously, we just touched on one, right? Playing at home for South Carolina hasn't been their strong suit. When you look at the models, when you look at what Vegas is predicting, it does become very interesting. So far, Diesel, the models are giving the Aggies an edge over the Gamecocks, but, big but here, by a very narrow margin. A&M's projected to win this game 54.1% of the computer's most recent simulations. Diesel, that leaves South Carolina as the presumptive winner in the remaining 45.9% of simulations. In total, the Aggies came out ahead in 10,820 of the index simulations of the game, while the Gamecocks edged them in 9,180. So as you look at the index, it suggests a very close win for the Aggies in the process. A&M's getting 62% of the bets right now to win the game. That's the amount of money that's coming in on A&M in Las Vegas, and cover the narrow spread. The other 38% of wagers project South Carolina will either win the game in an upset or will keep the game under a field goal margin in a loss. It's very interesting to look at this game now, Diesel, compared to at the beginning of the season when you and I thought this was a much more winnable game for South Carolina because of maybe an A&M program that was kind of in rebuild mode.
Mike Main gets in and says the X factor is Gamecocks haven't had a night game this year until Saturday. Well, Mike Main, the South Carolina Gamecocks haven't earned a night game until this point in the season, right?
This isn't the first one, is it?
Is it? I don't.
Akron was a night game. I was there.
Old Dominion was a 4:15 game. Akron was a 7:30 game. But no, they haven't played. Obviously, they haven't played a
real opponent,
an SEC opponent
yeah.
at home. There was a noon game against LSU. Ole Miss was a 3:30 game, and then they played the last two games on the road. You get nighttime games. You get rewarded with primetime slots when you're an exciting football team to watch. And South Carolina, thus far over the course of the season, Cole hasn't been lighting up the scoreboard offensively. But hey, you got the big old win at Oklahoma. You looked really good at Oklahoma. You've been really close against Alabama and against LSU. Now at this point of the season, Cole, you can finally say they've earned it. This is a top 10 team in Texas A&M, and it ought to be a top 25 team for South Carolina. I still think it's ludicrous that they don't have more than just one vote in the AP poll. This could very well be South Carolina's coming out party for the season. Well, and I'm excited for you Gamecock fans. Those of you who have got tickets, who are going to be there, I'm stoked for you. Just don't mess this up.
Here's the issue. And again, there's a couple of texts I want to get to and a message on the stream first. But Diesel, the issue is everybody, for the most part, going into this game, trusts the defensive unit. I don't know if the consensus of people trust the offense. Texter says from the 344, it's the life of a Gamecock. We sucked on the road last 2 years, and we're good at home. Now it's flipped, life of a Gamecock. T Swizzle on the YouTube stream where you can watch the show. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. T Swizzle says Carolina will probably beat A&M. Had all week to prepare for Reed. Just think A&M definitely not a top 10 team. I don't know. What I watched Saturday, T Swizzle and Diesel, I told you on Monday, what I watched with A&M beating LSU the way they did, I think they might be a top 10 team. They looked good on Saturday, and that goes back to my concern for South Carolina is, do they have the horses, right? We know their horse is now in Charlotte, who likes to do the giddy up after he scores a touchdown, Diesel, but do they have the horses to go toe-to-toe with the offense that I saw from A&M on Saturday against Ole Miss, against LSU, that's what concerns me if I were a Gamecock fan.
A&M has rattled off 7 straight wins. You don't put any credence in the McNeese game. You don't put any credence into the Bowling Green game. By the way, what's Bowling Green's mascot? Do you know?
Bowling Green,
never get it.
The Whataburgers.
You'll never get it. No. Starts with an F.
F.
Yeah.
The Fighting. Is that right?
Falcons. There you go. They're not the Fighting Falcons. They're just the Falcons.
The Fighting Falcons.
They've won 7 games in a row. They handled a Florida that's now looking like a better Florida than we expected them to be by 13 points. Comfortable win on the road at Florida. Still a tough place to play, even if they hate Billy Napier's guts down there. They snuck past Arkansas, which is a better team than a lot of people expected them to be. They blew out a Missouri that everybody thought was going to be really, really good, embarrassed them, made them look bad. They didn't blow out. They beat Mississippi State by 10 on the road. I don't care what you say. Listening to those ear-piercing cowbells all game long, It's got to suck. And then they won comfortably against LSU at home. I don't know where you're seeing that this is not a top 10 quality team.
I think it is too.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit certified hater mode right there.
Well, T. Swizzle's a Clemson guy, so
I know.
You can expect that.
Well, still, look, hey, you're not gonna hurt my feelings too much going after these weirdos at Texas A&M. I've witnessed it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been to a midnight yell call.
No, I have not.
I've witnessed it. It's weird. It's cultish. What they do, it's cultish. Those of you South Carolina fans who call Clemson a cult, they ain't got nothing on Texas A&M.
And Diesel, when you were going back to the schedule a minute ago, that loss, the 10-point loss that A&M has at the very beginning of the season, that now all of a sudden here at the end of October, that doesn't look like a horrible loss.
Yeah, Notre Dame is 7-1 football team.
Right.
Yeah,
One
they
loss.
screwed up and lost to NIU.
Yep.
But they've been running teams since then too. They ran Navy out of the building. They ran Stanford out of the building. They ran Purdue out of the building. So Notre Dame's good.
Here are some stats when it comes to Saturday's game that you, if you're a wager kind of guy or a Gamecock fan, you might want to pay attention to. The favorite, Diesel. The favorite to win the game has won each of South Carolina's last 11 games at Williams-Brice Stadium. What a stat that is.
Wow.
Also, South Carolina has lost each of its last 8 games as an underdog against AP-ranked teams. South Carolina has failed to cover the spread in 4 of its last 5 November home games against AP-ranked teams. And the road team has covered the spread in 6 of South Carolina's last 8 games. So
now that's a damning stat right there.
It is.
That you're not able to shut opponents down with all the help of I'm going to guess off the top of my head and say 74,000 that fit into Williams-Brice.
I think it's a little more than that.
You get all that help, and your defense still can't shut. Now, you've got a different kind of defense this year. Maybe this is your opportunity to change that. But, I mean, come on. You talk about forever to thee. You talk about packing the fans into the stands, and then has to turn into, not to beleaguer A&M's thing, but it has to turn into a 12th man.
And Diesel, here's the bottom line. If we have learned anything this season, we know that South Carolina can compete with anybody on the schedule. Anybody, regardless of who they play, they can compete. The problem is they've made too many mistakes in crucial games that have cost them, a la the LSU game, and you cannot allow that to happen, especially again at home on Saturday. If you want to beat A&M, you're going to have to be mistake-free.
Texter says SEC game times are predetermined before the season starts since the SEC signed the deal with ABC. Carolina-Clemson game time isn't set yet because it's at Clemson. That comes in from Perk. Yeah, good point. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that was the case. So it's more of a season by season thing. If you show out on television, you get ratings on television. Guess what? We give you better time slots next year. So very interesting.
What do you lean right now? I mean, right now on this Wednesday, where are you leaning on this?
The spread on this game is 2.5. Is that right?
I believe
just outright winner. Outright winner. I lean Texas A&M.
I do too.
And they're 2.5-point favorites. I think A&M is going to cover that, obviously, but I don't think by much. I'm going to say A&M by a touchdown. I think it's A&M by a touchdown. It might be a late touchdown that they need to break a tie.
No, I'm with you. I think that's a fair assessment. I said yesterday, I think I have felt all along, nothing has changed my mind yet to where I feel like South Carolina will win. And I know we're going to hit a break because we have Chris Phillips coming up at 3:20 today instead of 5:45. But Diesel, like, my concern is at the end of the day, I said it going into the LSU game, you have to be able offensively to match A&M score for score and answer them score for score. And the offense that I saw for A&M against LSU on Saturday in the second half was really good.
Yeah.
I believe in South Carolina's defense to hold A&M down, but at some point you just cannot continue to rely on your defense to win the game. The offense is going to have to continue to get better and step up.
I could see South Carolina's defense keeping a minute, and then Lenora Sellers having to press late and throwing a pick six, something like that helps A&M ice the football game away. I think South Carolina is going to be very competitive in this football game. I'm not willing to call the outright win, and I'm certainly not calling it as my upset pick because it's only worth 2.5.
Only worth 2 points.
Wesley Roberts gets in on the stream and says he's feeling great about his new strategy for picking his upset pick. He says he's asking ChatGPT to pick a random game time. How about that?
That might be a good strategy.
And SEC Unfiltered has just entered the chat, which means we have to shut up, go to break, and we'll bring Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered on in the very next segment. You got questions about SEC games this weekend? Now's the time to send them our way. We'll talk to Chris next. The big announcement here locally today, the Greenville Triumph have a new home right in Malden, South Carolina, where we thought it was going to be. You know, this whole thing started up a couple of years ago, seemed to have fizzled out. I have to explain to Chris Phillips that we're talking about soccer, which the Europeans call football, because he only cares about one kind of football, and that is the American football, where you play football not with your feet, but with the ball shaped like a lemon. We're joined right now by Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Welcome into the show. Number one, Chris, I'm sorry for your loss in the Upset Picks Challenge, but hey, everybody lost in the Upset Picks Challenge last week. How are you, pal?
Diesel Cole, I'm doing good, man. Yeah, it was a fun weekend in Nashville. Almost had that Vandy plus 17.5 or plus 18 number hit, but yeah, Greenville Triumph, I'm familiar. Good soccer club, if you will. I was actually just checking right before this at the Swamp Rabbits schedule. Might have to get my hockey fix coming up soon. So, no, it's a great time, man. Again, Nashville was a blast, and excited to chat with you guys.
Chris, we were talking in the very last segment about South Carolina and A&M at home, and we played the audio of Dorothy clicking her heels, wanting to go home, and the entire mantra of like most of the time the home field advantage is where a team thrives. However, it really hasn't been in 2024 for South Carolina. Can you put a finger on why this team's played better on the road than at home?
Yeah, it's interesting. Earlier in the season, Cole, I had a take that it just kind of feels like at least this season, home field advantage has almost been somewhat overrated. I think we've seen that sort of course correct itself when you saw the environment at Kyle Field when Texas A&M took on LSU. There are certainly times where home field gives you that extra bump, extra edge. I mean, again, as somebody who has been inside of Williams-Brice Stadium many, many times, I've seen it firsthand. But if you don't have the personnel, I mean, typically it really helps you out if the two teams are even, or maybe you're slightly better or just slightly worse, but still have comparable personnel. If you don't have the personnel to go toe-to-toe, and eventually football is a game to where the better team typically is going to win. I mean, again, I've seen this multiple times before we went on our crazy streak and all these runs of all these big-time home games producing these upsets. I mean, I saw it earlier in the year, guys. I was in the Swamp week 1 when Florida took on Miami, and a lot of the chatter going in that week was, man, it's the magic of the Swamp. It's going to be raucous. Well, the problem was Miami just had such superior personnel. That crowd quieted within 5 minutes of that game starting. So, I think if you have better personnel, a lot of times it can beat a loud crowd. But I think for South Carolina this season, the thing you got to keep in mind, because you do make a good point, they've had a couple big opportunities, haven't been able to come through. I mean, I tell anybody this, LSU, that game at Willie B, that's the loudest noon game I've ever heard in my entire life. That place was an insane asylum, legitimately. So the crowd did their part. But this is also the first against Texas A&M. This is the first home conference night game of the season. They've only had, I think, one other night game, and it was that game against Akron earlier in the year. So towels waving, sandstorm going. I think South Carolina does have comparable personnel. I think A&M top to bottom has better personnel, but I think it's comparable, and I think certainly the crowd could be the thing that pushes South Carolina over the edge on Saturday night.
Chris, there's an awful lot on the line in this game on Saturday. South Carolina fighting for bowl eligibility, as they are pretty much every season when you're coming down the stretch. A&M fighting for potential CFP eligibility. ESPN FPI, and I know you retweeted it this week, A&M is sitting right there on the bubble of being a 50-50 team to make the CFP. Does losing to South Carolina push them too far back out of the mix where they can't get back into contention?
No, I don't think it'd be impossible for them to make it. They close out the season, I believe, with New Mexico, Auburn, and then that big showdown, the Lone Star Showdown against Texas. So if they were to beat Texas and go 10-2, I think a 10-2 SEC team more than likely gets in the college football playoff, especially with the resume they would have taken down the Longhorns. But certainly it puts their backs against the wall, and I think for Texas A&M, this is one you'd obviously like to have. You'd like to follow up that LSU game. And this is the game, guys, in years past that A&M would typically lose. They haven't had problems in years past facing off against top 5 competition, top 10, taking down Alabama, beating whoever. But it's in these games, and I know against South Carolina, they've had the upper hand more years than not. But, guys, they've had games against Mississippi State and Auburn and in years past against what they felt like at the time was inferior competition, games they should have won, that A&M just went out there and laid a stinker. So I think this is one, you ask any Aggie fan, the LSU win was big, but this is the one that's going to kind of tell you, okay, are we in for a really special season, or are we in just for kind of a good season like we've seen in years past. And I actually heard you guys segment yesterday about the pressures that Shane Beamer and Dabo Sweeney are facing. And certainly for Beamer, man, I mean, this is one. Listen, at this point, you're like a big hitter that keeps coming up with 2 outs and guys in scoring position. Like, are you ever going to cash in, man? It's just another huge opportunity at home. You need to start cashing in on these opportunities.
Chris, when you look at the SEC in totality, 2024, you cover them on a weekly or a daily basis. Which team has kind of been the team that you've been most disappointed with that haven't met your expectations in 2024?
Yeah, Cole, I'm going to give you a few if that's okay.
Yep.
The top 2 for me has got to be Auburn and Kentucky. I mean, especially Kentucky, guys. I feel really foolish at this point. I was pretty high on the Cats going in, had them around an 8-4 record. Just felt really good about the personnel, especially defensively. I don't think anybody could have seen it coming how bad Brock Vandagriff has been, and in turn, the offense has just been terrible. So they've been extremely disappointing. Again, I mentioned Auburn finally got off the schneid and beat that Kentucky team I just mentioned. But, I felt like I had pretty conservative expectations for the Tigers. And, I mean, they've even fallen short of those, right? I think getting to a bowl game now would be a huge success. But you know who I've been disappointed with is Ole Miss. They've been so underwhelming to me. I can't believe how underwhelming they've been, even in victories. Like, the moment we've gotten to conference play, they've just been all right. They've been okay. I saw them in person at LSU. They let that football game admittedly get away. Even against Oklahoma this past weekend, it's like they win, but they're down at halftime. Guys, they haven't scored 30 points or more in 4 straight games, which with those weapons and Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin dialing it up just seems wrong. So I just feel like, guys, for the semblance of talent they have and all the hype they got in the preseason, they've been kind of a dud to me. And spoiler, I've got them going on the road this weekend and having some trouble in Fayetteville, say the least.
Chris, so far through the season, Florida has beaten the teams they were supposed to beat and lost to the teams that they were supposed to lose to. Now, things get infinitely more difficult over the next 4 weeks for the Gators. Number 2, Georgia. Number 6, Texas. Number 16, LSU. Number 19, Ole Miss. How is the temperature changing on Billy Napier? I mean, we remember earlier in the season, it was announced that the buyout money was essentially pre-raised if they wanted to pull the trigger and get rid of him. But the season has gone kind of the way that they expected it to go if you just looked at the opponents they were going to play. So how have things changed for Billy Napier?
Yeah, Diesel, great question. So we're headed down to that game this weekend at Jacksonville for the cocktail party, which we'll only call it by its proper name, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I actually had a great conversation. You're catching me at a good time, Diesel. My good friend Nick De La Torre, who covers the Gators down there in Gainesville, does a great job in doing so. And I asked him that very question. Florida sits 4-3 right now. You mentioned the closing stretch they have, which is one of the toughest we've ever seen in college football history, even with Florida State being a complete dumpster fire. He kind of echoes what I said going in the season, too. If they get to 6 wins, Billy Napier is going to be back next year. I don't think a lot of fans are checked out on Billy, but fans don't fire coaches, guys. Administrations do and people behind the scenes. And for what I'm being told and what he told me even today, I don't think the administration wants to necessarily move off of Billy Napier. I don't think they want to pay the buyout. I don't think they want to lose out on the future of DJ Lagway in Gainesville, and at least seeing what that looks like next year. So they've got to win games, obviously. They've got to find a way to get to a bowl game. I think if they were to go 5-7, they'd have to be super competitive in all these games they have left and then beat Florida State. And even then, I think it would be very 50-50 on him returning. But, guys, if they get to 6 wins, which would, again, be probably beating Florida State, and they'd have to upset a Georgia, a Texas, an LSU, and an Ole Miss. And realistically, I think an LSU and an Ole Miss. I don't even know if Georgia and Texas are really winnable games, but 2024, you never know. But I think there's still a pretty good chance he's back next year. And the thing is, guys, is this. You listen to interviews and you watch Florida and folks I talked to down there, he hasn't lost the locker room in any sense of the word. I mean, that team is really bought in. They're behind Billy Napier. So I think the seat is hot, but I don't think it's as hot as people might think, where it's like he's just a dead man walking. It's only a matter of time. Things can certainly go south, but there is a realistic path to Billy Napier being back next year.
Yeah, Chris, thank God fans don't make those decisions, because Kalen DeBoer would be out of a job. Ryan Day would be out of a job.
Dabo Sweeney'd probably be fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Fans, yeah.
Chris, you said dead men walking. Is Hugh Freeze in your mind to that level yet?
No, he won't be until next year. I think it makes obviously next year a must win for him. I think getting to 8 wins will probably be the minimum expectation next year. Um, things are certainly here's the thing that's saving Hugh Freeze, because I was going to say is things are certainly tumultuous and on rocky ground, but I think there's still a lot of people that believe in the way they are recruiting the young guys. I think, guys, there's this feeling right now that it's more on the fault of the old guys in the program, and they've got this crop of youngsters that they're building around, that they feel like they're bringing in new blood, new culture, and those things are all great, but it's got to play out on the field. So no, I wouldn't say he's a dead man walking, but certainly I think he and Brent Venables are the two guys we're going to talk about being on the hottest seats. Assuming if Billy Napier's back, then certainly we throw him in there. But Freeze and Venables, I would say the two hottest seats more than likely going into next season.
Chris, we were debating this yesterday, trying to figure out why LSU fell so far this week in the AP Top 25, falling 8 spots down to number 16 after, it wasn't a blowout win. It was a 2-score win, or 2-score loss, to Texas A&M. Can you explain? I mean, Boise State is Boise State. They got a great running back. Alabama's looked iffy over the course of the season. So can you help me make a little sense of why LSU fell so far after the A&M loss?
Yeah, Diesel, it kind of feels like there's been people waiting on the downfall, because LSU, I'm not going to sit here and say they've been winning games via smoke and mirrors, but they've been overcoming some mistakes by Garrett Nussmeier. And, again, I was at that LSU Ole Miss game, and he made some throws. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier, I mentioned on social media earlier this week, he's the pitcher that throws 100, but at times has no clue where it's going.
Ricky Vaughn.
He's Ricky Vaughn. He literally is. So I don't know if there's people that were kind of waiting on that downfall, and they're punishing LSU extra for losing that game in College Station. But I agree with you. I thought it was a big drop. And, I mean, guys, listen, Missouri's still ranked. So the AP poll in my mind is a complete joke.
Chris, get your Magic 8 Ball out for this question as we look to the fall of 2025. When you look at the senior quarterbacks in the SEC, which quarterback would you tell me has the best chance to be successful the quickest in the NFL?
That's a great question. Which guy right now going into next year? I would probably still go with Quinn Ewers at Texas. I would probably go with Quinn. I don't think he's a senior, but I think he's going to be out after this year. I'd probably still go Quinn. I think in the right system, the right scheme, which so much of it in the NFL obviously is getting in the right situation. Just ask Bryce Young and Charlotte how that's going. But, getting in the right situation is important. I like Quinn Ewers' skill set a lot, man. He's under a heck of a microscope at Texas. But, watching him in person, I saw him complete 17 straight passes. And, I like Quinn a lot. So I'll go with Quinn Ewers. I think he's got the best chance for success the quickest.
Chris, I know that we talk predominantly football with you on this show, but hey, when those preseason AP Top 25 numbers came out for the basketball side of things, the SEC looks to be dominant again this year. Alabama's there, Tennessee, A&M is in there, Auburn is there. Of course, a huge season potentially. Really kind of put the boot on the throat of the ACC and college basketball as a whole. I know you probably haven't spent a ton of time thinking about basketball yet, but do you have any general early thoughts about how the SEC season is going to go?
Yeah, ironically, Diesel, and I really appreciate you bringing this up. Shameless plug. We're actually dropping tonight over on YouTube podcast our 2024-2025 SEC basketball season preview. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Again, the season starts Monday, man. It's never too early to talk it, especially when the season's around the corner. But we spent some time. Again, we got about a 45-minute preview dropping. I think it's going to be a heck of a race at the top. You mentioned there's 9 teams ranked in the AP Top 25 preseason. That includes Texas, who's obviously a new member. The battle at the top is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, John Calipari being at Arkansas has got to be one of the top storylines in the conference. Mark Pope over at Kentucky. Alabama's got arguably their best team in school history. How does Tennessee replace Dalton Knecht? Can Auburn get the guard play to make a run this year? Then you go down the list of who's going to be the South Carolina guys of last year, right? They came out of nowhere and shot up and made the tournament and everything. Also, how does Lamont Paris's team look this year? You lose Michie Johnson, Ohio State, to the portal. You picked up Nick Pringle. Colin Murray Boyles is back. So they've got something nice to build around. I think teams like Ole Miss, Florida, Georgia even could be upstart squads that surprise. So certainly to your point, man, we got great coaches, great players, and it's going to be a great 2024-2025 season. I think, honestly, this could be the best season of SEC basketball that we've ever had. And I don't say that, hyperbole. I really think so with the talent, the coaches, and it only gets better. So you got to commend the SEC for actually investing in college basketball, and it's paying off major dividends. We're excited over at SEC Unfiltered to cover it.
Chris, before we let you go, do you have a riveting upset pick for us?
Well, I teased it earlier, Cole. I'm going with the Hogs in Fayetteville to beat Ole Miss straight up.
There you go.
Arkansas, I believe, right now, I just checked before I came on, is +7. Unfortunately, there were no 20 or 30-point spreads. I felt confident and tried to take a major. At some point, guys, we get to the end of the season, you're like, well, I got to take a major swing to make up some ground. So
we've been doing that for 5 weeks now.
I know. Unfortunately, I wasn't like the guy that took Kennesaw State at +27.5 or whatever it was. So we're all trying to be that guy. But, yeah, give me Arkansas +7. I think they win that game straight up.
Yeah, Chris, we all lost together because out of 120 picks last week, only 2 of them got it correct, and one of them was by sheer accident. Sheer accident.
It's true. It's true.
I'm gonna have to start playing some of those Tuesday, Wednesday games. There might be some good value there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Great stuff, Chris. We always appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Cole Diesel, you're the best, man. Keep up the great work.
See you, Chris.
Always fantastic to talk a little SEC football with SEC Unfiltered Diesel.
Yeah.
7-point spread there for Chris Phillips. Arkansas over. God,
that's a good one. That is a good one. Arkansas is an improved
It's
football
just so
team.
funny, though. Like 2 months ago, everybody agreed that Sam Pittman in Arkansas was a disaster. It was it. This was the final year, and now all of a sudden he's already beaten Tennessee, and it is 7-point. I feel like that spread should be more, but to Chris's point, Ole Miss has been underwhelming. They've been very underwhelming, but we'll see.
It's going to be fascinating. And guys, your picks are going to be due here in just about 20 minutes. We already had Palmetto Buckeye. Try to get in early. Calm down. Slow down. Whoa, Nelly. Okay. You're not going to be able to get yours in until 4 o'clock. And then, of course, Cole, then it's going to be a flood. The floodgates will open, and we're gonna break another record this week. I just know it. Another record of new picks and total number of picks. So that's exciting. That's coming up at 4 o'clock. When we come back, Cole,
the Yankees, they did it. We talked about it, but can they do it again? We'll discuss it next.
It's huge. Freeman cracks one deep to right field. And good again! Freddie Freeman floating in the World Series. 4 games, 4 home runs. You gotta be kidding.
Make that 6 games, including his previous 2, Diesel. And by the way, it's never been done before. Freddie Freeman, 6 straight World Series games with a home run. When we talk about history and remembering icons and remembering the greatest moments in sports, this one's going to rank near the top. Even though it's baseball, even though a lot of football and basketball moments may rank ahead of it in some people's eyes, what Freddie Freeman did again last night was phenomenal. However, the Yankees did rally and put together a nice offensive performance last night and finally get a win.
Man, we got Madcraft talking junk on the stream.
Does that surprise you?
Madcraft says, in 2020, Aaron Judge's wife got arrested for a DUI. She tested 2 times, once at 0.169 and the other time at 0.181. Why is that interesting? Because both of those are higher than Aaron Judge's .133 World Series batting average. Dang,
man, throwing
that's
shots.
mean. So you can take a shot at Aaron Judge. That's totally fine,
man.
But to take a shot at Aaron Judge's wife, that's a low blow.
It's a low hanging fruit, man.
Yeah, low hanging fruit. She's a civilian. Okay, Madcraft, she's a civilian. Now, what Freddie Freeman has done, and the fact that he's doing it early, Cole, and he's putting his team in a great position. Now, obviously, it didn't work out their way last night because the New York Yankees bats finally came alive in that game. And by the way, it wasn't really, it wasn't out of the realm of possibility for the Dodgers to come back and win that game until Anthony Volpe hit that home run, that grand slam. But anytime, obviously, you ask any coach, you ask any baseball player in any sport, obvious thing here. Getting out to a lead early, it changes the way you can play.
Yeah.
It changes your options. It changes what you do with your pitching staff. And obviously with last night being a different situation for the Dodgers, running out their entire bullpen seemed like a good strategy. And it kind of happened the way we all thought it was going to go down. If you could steal a win and sweep the World Series with your bullpen, you're in a good spot. Number one, because you got a really good bullpen. But number two, it obviously rests your guys. So it happened the way we thought it would. And it took some fireworks from the Yankees to put this one away.
It did. I was just very, very surprised. I was scared. I was nervous because I did take the Yankees last night to win when the Dodgers came out. And in the first inning, Freddie does it again. It scared me. I said, it doesn't matter if the Dodgers have a bullpen game or not. It doesn't matter because for whatever the Yankees, or for whatever reason, the Yankees cannot hold the Dodgers down in the first inning. And I think that is one of the more important things to look at. We talked about it yesterday on the show, Diesel. The Yankees needed a win to keep the series alive. But after last night, even though it's a 3-1 lead, at least the Yankees now kind of have like a sense of hope, sense of belief that, hey, you know what? We're down 3-1, but last night we were able to put 11 runs, 9 hits on the board. I know you're not going to get that against the best of the best with Flaherty on the mound tonight. However, with Garrett Cole on the mound, Diesel, for the Yankees, I don't know as of right now, and this game is at 8:08 tonight, sitting here at 3:50, I don't know who to pick. My heart and gut tells me to go with the Dodgers, but there's something that just says, like in baseball, once you get that rhythm, once you get that confidence, maybe you can go on a run, and the Yankees now have it.
Yeah, Aaron Judge 1 for 3 last night. He knocked in an RBI. So even though he's not playing well, he was at least minimally productive last night. He got the run. He knocked in a run. Torres was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
For them putting in 3 runs. And obviously Anthony Volpe was fantastic. Wells was great. I was looking at Wells, Cole, and did you ever notice that Wells looks kind of like the villain from Major League? Was it 2? Where they faced the New York Yankees? He looked like an old school baseball player. The mustache, and especially when it comes down on the sides of the mouth, you look like a 70s baseball player. And see, now I'm reminding myself, Cole, why when I was a kid, you'd see somebody who was like 30, 35 years old, and they would look dang near 50.
Yeah.
Because they had the mustaches.
People tell me that
made him look 50.
Yeah.
And Wells has that mustache that makes him look fit. Clue Hayward, Clue, whatever his name was. He looked like him from Major League.
Last night, the Yankees obviously had it go in their direction. I asked you, Aline, earlier about the Gamecocks Diesel, but also on the Yankees-Dodgers tonight. Is it a foregone conclusion in your mind that the Dodgers are winning tonight?
Well, it all depends on, who they're throwing out there tonight. Who are they? Who is
Garrett Cole versus Jack Flaherty?
Okay, so we got two aces going at each other again tonight. I don't know, man. I think there's enough momentum behind the Yankees to eke out another one.
God,
Am I expecting all these fireworks again? No. But I could see them eking one out. I mean, for God's sakes, if Freddie Freeman does it again,
and
goes 5 for 5,
why are you pitching to him though?
Yeah, exactly.
Why pitch to him?
Put the ball down in the zone, down and away.
You've got a base open, and you still pitch to him, man. I don't get it. But I'm with you. I think the Yankees could win tonight, but it's hard to pick against LA, especially after a loss.
When we come back, Cole, it is time to jump right into our upset picks challenge for week number 10. Tolos, hold back another 7 minutes. Hold back. We'll be ready for you at 4 o'clock. That's coming up next on the Fan Upstate. And here we go. Second Batman reference on the show this week. How
Pretty
about
good.
that? Heath Ledger's Joker. Here we go. The floodgates are opened. Tolos, you can now start sending in your upset picks for week number 10, and they're already flooding in, Cole. I feel like I could be calling this like a racehorse, like a horse race, play-by-play. Just the sheer number
Like an
that
auction.
come in. Yes, the sheer number that come in immediately out of the gate. We've got John Corley, who says he wants Vanderbilt +7 over Auburn. Boomer Bill wants the exact same game. Cole, this is my favorite thing we do all year. The Wire to Wire Upset Picks Challenge, this year brought to you by Ingles Markets. We appreciate their sponsorship of the challenge. Hopefully, we make this thing bigger and better next year. But here is your challenge. Here is your task, Tolos. Those of you who already know what to do, great. Send us in your game, your name, and your spread to 71307. Start your text with keyword fan.
And your
But
bank
those
account
of you,
number.
those of you who don't know what's going on, this is the Wire to Wire Upset Picks Challenge. Your goal, if you enter this challenge, is to pick an upset. And you think, oh my God, that's really easy. Well, no, you're not picking against the spread. You're picking outright wins. And that's where it gets tough because not only are you playing against yourself to see if you can pick the upsets, you're also playing against hundreds of other Tolos who are in this challenge, and they are rising up the leaderboard mighty quickly. Your job is to see if you can beat them.
And when Diesel said that it's difficult, put like 110 exclamation points behind the word difficult and underline it and make it bold.
I think the word is impossible.
Well, sometimes it feels that way. Sometimes for our Tolos out there, including myself, it does feel that way. And by the way, Tolo, turn on, leave on, if you were curious of what that stood for. You're the Tolos, you listeners out there. It used to be P1. Now you are Tolos. We ask you to turn it on and leave it on. Diesel, I actually am pretty confident this week. I know that my confidence.
You sure about that?
Well, don't ask me that, but I'll tell you, my confidence has been up and down. I would have. Let me just be very clear and rehash. I would have been on a 2-game win streak coming into today if it weren't for the stupid, moronic, worthless, you know what, Duke Blue Devils, who were gifted 6 turnovers, Diesel, against SMU and still couldn't muster together a win. Thanks to those idiots, pathetic losers, I didn't hit on my upset pick. So my streak's cold.
Yeah.
But as you said earlier, only 2 Tolos hit last week of 100-something.
I don't think I've gotten a pick right since like week 6, Cole. No. I've gotten 2 right overall. I'm still doing better than you, so I feel pretty good about that. Yeah. Aren't I?
What?
Aren't I?
Can you please?
Can
we get a recount?
I've got 13 points. I'm in 57th place overall. No, I'm sorry. You've got 1 point more than me. You're in 53rd place with 14 points. Guys, this thing has gotten so big that
so big.
Dan B had to have a whole new page to put all the Tolos who have points. So we have a top 50 graphic and we have a 50 through 103 graphic posted up at the Fan Upstate on Twitter. You don't have to have a Twitter account to see this. Just go to twitter.com/thefanupstate. It is the tweet pinned to the top of our Twitter page. Though if you don't have a Twitter, we would invite you to get one so that you can then follow the show, so you can follow the station at the Fan Upstate. We'd love for you to jump in and be a part of this thing. Cole, this is we haven't gotten picks yet from Twisted Whisker, Noel, John Dog, Joe D, Reed Atkins, Amazon guy, those who are like crushing this thing.
Yeah.
Those guys, though, they're so far ahead that they can afford to keep going for the massive upsets. And even if they miss and they drop down a point, they're not falling outside of the top 10.
No, and I'll tell you another thing I was looking at this week with the games. We mentioned yesterday, I believe, Diesel, how the games this weekend were pretty tight in terms of the spread. I predict on the text line 71307, I predict a lot of parity this week. I'm really thinking we're going to have parity here. I know that in weeks past, we've had 11, 12, 13, 14, all picked, or more than that, all picked the same game. I think last week there were 11 other Tolos that had the Duke game, just as I did. But I think this week, when you look at the slate of games, I think we're going to have a lot of parity just because there's not like those big hitters that we talked about.
Yeah, there's not a ton of them, and the ones that you have, this is when things get a little far out there to make these picks. Though, Cole, Gravy, we can't say your name on the radio.
Gravy's great.
Gravy, you came in like a wrecking ball, Miley Cyrus, and you picked Kennesaw State to upset Liberty, and you got 26 points for it, and he's swinging for the fences again, Cole. Think about this. If Gravy hits on his 2 picks in back-to-back weeks, Gravy would find himself inside the top 10.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Gravy gets in, and he's picking Duke over Miami for 21 and a half
Don't
points.
do it, Gravy. Gravy, delete your text. Throw your phone away. Get a new number. Do not pick Duke. Do not pick Duke, Gravy. That is a horrible, horrible mistake. Dude,
you're just hurt by
I am,
it.
and I'll also say this: 100%, 100, without a shadow of a doubt, there's no way, Gravy, that pick hits. There's zero chance. I mean, zero.
But here's the thing,
zero.
Cole.
It's not happening.
Strategy-wise, it doesn't matter if that game hits or not for him because Gravy has 26 points.
I know. You're right. I know.
He would have 47 and a half points, which would put him, depending on what happens around him in the top 5, would certainly, as of right now, would put him in 3rd place, Cole.
Mm-hmm.
In 3rd place.
Be nice.
And if he doesn't, he's still in 22nd place. Right? So it's a strategy that's viable.
Diesel, I'm eager. Do you have yours? I'm eager. I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm ready.
I have my upset pick. Am I ready to commit? That is a big question.
Is that still an if right now?
No. I'll pick one here live on the spot here, Cole. But I'll tell you what games I looked at.
Yeah.
I looked at a game that's being played Friday night, Georgia State +7 at UConn.
Yeah.
I watched Georgia State play last week. They can play. They have a decent offense. I mean, it's not going to win postseason awards for like lighting up the scoreboard or anything, but they are solidly putting up 3 to 4 scores a game, and UConn isn't. UConn's got a better defense. I think Georgia State's got a slightly better offense. This game is probably a race to 24 points. So it would be Georgia State +7 at UConn. Looking at that one. I'm also looking at Vandy +7 at Auburn because it's Hugh Freeze's Auburn, and it's Diego Pavia on the other side of the football. And by the way, we have this audio, Cole, of we had this audio here. We have audio of Hugh Freeze with his opinion on playing Diego Pavia.
And to answer number one, I'm sick of seeing that quarterback. I've had enough of him, and what a competitor he is, and the job that Clark Lee and his staff have done there. Man, to be in the games and have a chance to win all the games they're playing against the nation's elite is just so impressive.
It sounds a little condescending.
I hate hearing him talk.
He said he can't help but be condescending.
Yeah,
I hate that dude.
Yeah, I don't like him.
So I'm looking at that one. I'm looking at Vandy to rub Hugh Freeze's nose in it and possibly get Hugh Freeze fired.
I like that.
Wouldn't that be great?
Go Commodores.
And then I'm looking at Texas Tech +14.5 on the road at Iowa State, who are 7-0. I talked about this one yesterday. Texas Tech has a very, very good offense, but the defense is all over the place. They've given up 59 points to TCU. They gave up 41 points against Cincinnati, and then they held Arizona and Arizona State to 22 points each.
Yeah.
So Texas Tech has lost 2 in a row. Is it going to be 3 in a row? Is it going to be one of those things that like the rock has tumbled off the cliff and there's no slowing this thing down, Cole? I'm going to go.
Hold on.
I'm going to go Texas Tech over Iowa State. I need the points. I think Vandy Auburn has a much, much better chance of hitting, but I'm taking Texas Tech +14.5 against the Cyclones of Iowa State. Come on, put up some points. Texas Tech, you Red Raiders, one of my favorite mascots in college football.
It is a good one.
I'm going the Red, and they've got the horse that comes out onto the field.
Yeah.
It's great.
So I don't hate that. And by the way, the point spread one more time.
14.5.
Okay, so I like your pick. I don't hate that at all. I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavor of that pick. However, I'm doing something that I'm not normally doing as of late.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing a little bit safer of a bet this week.
I
am. But let me tell you the reason I'm doing that. The reason that I am, and I want every Tolo under the sun to hear this because I'm confident. Diesel, the reason I'm going safe this week is because I have found the game that is a 100% lock. That's right. It is a lock. I can promise
so
you.
You know it's not going to hit.
I can. I was saying this with a straight face until now. I can promise you, I can assure you, Tolo's out there. You can write it down. You can tweet it out. You can put it in your bookmark. You can put it on your refrigerator. I promise you, Pittsburgh is beating SMU Saturday night.
Oh.
Pittsburgh's beating SMU. That's my upset pick.
Spread?
7.5 points. It's not a big spread, but I'm telling you, I looked at that game. It's a lock. SMU's not as good as Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is going to beat SMU, and I don't think it – I'm telling you, it wouldn't surprise me if that game's not close. The Panthers are going – not the Carolina – the Pittsburgh Panthers Saturday night are going to take down SMU. Book it.
Greenville Gamecock. It's a good pick. It's a good pick. Pitt has been that team in the back of my mind. I'm just waiting for them to fall because I am guilty of helmet scouting against Pitt also. And I think, it's just Pitt, right? Yeah. It's Pitt. Pitt is, you know what? It rhymes, a word that rhymes with Pitt.
Dit?
No, that's not the word I'm thinking about.
Rit.
No, that's not the word I'm thinking about either. No, I mean, I'm waiting for them to fall off, but they're not falling off. Pitt is a very impressive team this year. And John Dog says, don't pick with Cole. He doesn't want anybody else to pick that game with you, Cole. So they don't have, you're 100% in.
Listen, more room for me on the boat, John Dog. More room. I can spread out, bro. Listen, that's fine. Y'all don't roll with me because I promise you Monday morning, by God, I'm going to be sitting here playing that audio. Pitt's not losing to SMU. Y'all, you don't have to pick the same game. You can go for the Grand Slam and be like Freddie Freeman, but I'm just telling you, if you want to lock this weekend,
Chicks take the long ball.
They do. I know they do, but take Pitt. Take them. Take them.
John Dog, who are you taking, by the way? I don't see your pick. John Dog. So hit us up, 71307. Again, we kind of get into the minutia on this, Cole, because we think everybody already knows about the challenge. But guess what? We always see, 5 to 10 to 15 new Tolos jumping into the challenge each week. I want to tell you flat out, Cole, that it is possible for you, if you have not yet entered this challenge, to jump in week 10 and do very, very well in this thing. We've had Tolos come out of nowhere and hit 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, or sometimes they just hit on one big one and they're up there now in the top 25, and now you're addicted. See, that's the thing. We want to get you addicted to the challenge.
I am too.
So,
and by the way, one of the leaders, Diesel, just got his in. Breaking news.
Ooh.
Breaking news on the Fan Upstate.
He's going conservative this week.
Twisted Whisker, who I believe, let me check the standings. Twisted Whisker is in first place in this challenge. He's got a stranglehold. So he is the leader
on the top spot, 54.5 points. He's 5 points ahead of Noel. So there you go. Noel, I don't know if that's going to affect your pick. I'm sure you're listening. I know you're listening. You're always early with your upset pick here in the first hour of the thing being open each week. So it's funny, Cole, usually down the stretch, as we get into like week 12 and we get into bowl season, we'll have P1s text us to ask, hey, who'd so-and-so pick?
Yeah.
They either think it's because that person is right, or they're near them in the challenge and they want to make sure that they stay out in front of them or possibly have a chance to beat them. So
let's
Noel, wherever you are, if you want to pass Twisted Whisker this week, Texter says, can we pick tonight's games? Yes, you can. You can pick Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday games. Chris got in earlier and said, I might have to take a Tuesday game. You can't take Tuesday games because the challenge doesn't open until Wednesdays. And hey, that's a new thing anyway. That's stupid Conference USA stuff.
No, don't say
Tuesday
that.
nights.
Don't
you
do
can't
that.
pick those games.
All right, let's hear from Delvin, who wants to get his pick in. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663.
Can you get off the schneid?
Delvin, remind us, Tolos, and including myself, what you picked last week before you give us this week's. Did you get on the board finally?
I lost by 1 point with Texas Tech getting beat 35-34, man.
Yeah.
So Delvin's burnt by Texas Tech. I'm taking Texas Tech this week, and you may be saying to me, Diesel, I'm still mad about this. Don't take Texas Tech, but it's too late. I've already said it on the air. I can't take it back.
I'm taking Syracuse +4 over Virginia Tech. I don't see how Virginia Tech is favorite going to Syracuse.
Interesting.
I saw them play Georgia Tech last week without their backup quarterback.
And that's how many points? Did you say 4?
Yeah, +4.
Playing it safe. I like it.
Well, Delvin, we want you on the board, man. The board is lonely without you
right now, man.
Appreciate the call, Delvin. We wish you good luck this week. Delvin is a long time P1 and Tolo of the Fan Upstate. We appreciate him being a part of this challenge every single year. It's just this year, don't trust what Delvin has to say because he's over all season long. That's why it's so frustrating. This challenge is fun and it's frustrating at the same time.
Before we run, let's see what the texters, the Tolos, are saying. Tolo Steve wants Vandy +7 over Auburn. John Dog gets Texas Tech over Iowa State, 13.5.
There you go. Smart man, John Dog.
I don't hate that. Tolo Yardbird, I'm getting on the gravy train. Duke over Miami, 21.5. Let's go.
Oh, my God.
That's interesting.
That's a quick way to a -1 right there.
Greenville Gamecock on my 26th birthday today. Hopefully my weekend ends with some points. Give me Vandy over Auburn +7. Greenville Gamecock, happy freaking birthday to you, man.
Yeah.
Happy 26.
I've gotten in a number of our celebrity picks to this point, Cole. Diddy is taking Vanderbilt +7 at Auburn. Shane Connick wants Indiana at Michigan State +7.5. Jake Crane is with me taking Texas Tech +14.5 at Iowa State. Melissa Level from Ingles Markets. Again, we appreciate Ingles Markets for their sponsorship of this challenge. She's taken South Carolina +2.5 against Texas A&M. Josh Pate taking Indiana at Michigan State. MTC Scott, a new one this week. That is MTC Scott from MTC Federal Credit Union.
There
by the
you
way.
go.
He is taking Indiana at Michigan State +7.5. We had Chris Phillips on live with us earlier. He's taking Arkansas +7 on the road at Ole Miss.
I like it. Jeff R. wants Houston over Kansas State +13. Rev Red got in. He wanted Duke +20 versus Miami. I don't like that, guys. Chris Arnett also Duke DOOK +21.5 over Miami. Markello Duck said UL Monroe +10.5 over Marshall.
I don't hate that pick.
No. Hog Dog Vandy +7 at Auburn. JC wants Pitt +7.5 over SMU. Dan B. How about Dan B? Florida +16.5 versus Georgia.
You know, Dan, if I make a little hand gesture with the number of points you have, it turns into like one of those like seeing glasses that you
it's going to stay that way. I hate to tell you.
You just look, 0 points for Dan B.
And they're not. I think it's going to stay that way. I don't think Florida's going to beat Georgia. A few more. Pac-Fan Shuff wanted Arkansas over Mississippi +7. JB. What's up, JB? Remember JB? Formerly Spur Daddy.
Spur Daddy.
Now JB wants Pitt over SMU 7.5. CJ from Greer. Texas Tech over Iowa State +14.5. How about that one? Maize and Brew. Pitt 7.5 over SMU. And Forest, Vandy over Auburn -7. And then one more, Keith and Fountain Inn wanted Kansas State over Western Kentucky +24.
And shout out to Forrest. I assume this is the same Forrest. Forrest Lowry just followed us on Twitter.
Let's go.
Right on.
Let's go.
Right on. You were officially a Tolo, Forrest. Look at you. You didn't realize you were going to wake up today and have something great happen to you. But you did it, and now you're a Tolo.
Also, I miss Tiger Pal Rachel Diesel. She said Michigan over Oregon 14 because one, that's number one spot seems jinked. Number two, Michigan would love to play spoiler to the new kid. Number three, I need a big score. So best of luck to you, Tiger Pal Rachel.
Oregon
By the way,
is just playing at a different level right now, though.
Yeah, they're good.
Oregon is
learned that last
beating the
week.
tar out of good teams.
Yeah. And I want to remind Tolos, just FYI, if we do not read yours on the air, it doesn't mean we didn't get it. If you get a text back from the station that says thanks for listening or whatever it is, you're good. You got your text in. That's how you submit the text. Sometimes we cannot get to every single one of them. But the upset picks rolls on. Just because we're going Diesel to a different topic doesn't mean you can't continue to get your upset picks in. I want to go from college football to the NFL level in the very next segment because we talked a lot about some really good teams this year, but I want to find out who the true contenders are, Diesel, in the NFL. Your Tolos, your thoughts, Tolos, 71307. Stick around with us. That's next. Getting down to business, separating the pretenders from the contenders. That's what we're going to do, as we've had a pretty good sample size now in week 9 of the NFL. It is our job, Tolos, to inform you of our opinion on who is legit and who is not. You can play along as well. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Again, keyword fan after you text 71307. You know, I had somebody the other day, Tolo, I forgot to tell you this, tell me that I sounded like Brent Beard.
No, you don't.
And I had a Tolo in public tell me that this past weekend, actually. Can you believe that?
Brent Beard is like the deep South Mr. Rogers. And I mean that with all the love I can throw at him.
He really is.
I love Brent. I love Brent Beard.
He's great. And I was like, I don't know if I'll take that as an insult or a compliment, but I was like, man, I always felt like his was stronger than mine. I know I have a strong Southern accent, but his is next level. Diesel, I want you to play administrator here as we go down the list of teams. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you whether they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Can they win it all, separating the haves from the have-not, the phonies from the contenders? That's what we're doing now. Let's start this thing off with wherever you want to start on the list.
Okay, let's start. Why don't we just start right there at the top with the Baltimore Ravens?
You know, this was my pick before the season started to win the Super Bowl. Baltimore Diesel was the team that I picked to win the Super Bowl this season. They had a bad loss Sunday. Let's just call it like it is. They lost to the Browns.
Come on, Jameis Winston's Brown. Washed up Jameis.
And again, you give Jameis a lot of credit because he did play well, but that's a bad loss. So I'm not ready to jump off of the train yet because I do love Lamar Jackson. I love Derrick Henry. I sure do wish he was a Dallas Cowboy. And now, obviously, we talked about it yesterday. To add to Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, Diesel, they now have Deontay Johnson from the Carolina Panthers. So they're going to be a team like when the end of the season gets here in the NFL, you have to be able to play defense and run the football. When it's all said and done, yeah, they've had a few losses that you scratch your head at right now. But I do believe when the season's all said and done, I think the Ravens are a team that late in the year and in the postseason will be able to run the football effectively with Derrick Henry as well as play good defense, and that translates to postseason success. So I will say they are a contender still to this day because they're the team that I picked to win it all.
Yeah, I think they're very clearly still in it. They've got all the pieces they need. You lose an ugly game, so what? It's the NFL, right? You're built in, you're designed – it's designed for you to be able to lose 3 or 4 games a year in the regular season and still be highly ranked and rated at the end of the season. So I got no reason to think that the Baltimore Ravens are suddenly going to fall apart. There's nothing wrong with their roster. Their roster just got better. They don't throw the ball a lot, but they added Deontay Johnson so that they have extra depth and they get to add a different kind of wrinkles to the offense. I like this team a lot. Do I think that they're going to make the Super Bowl and win the whole thing? No, I don't. But I do think they may be a contender to reach at least the championship.
Tolo Steve gets in on the text line 71307 keyword fan. Tolo Steve says contenders in the AFC, Buffalo and Kansas City. Contenders in the NFC, Detroit and San Francisco. Definitely not Cleveland. So Tolo Steve does not agree with me that the Baltimore Ravens are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I still think they are. Again, obviously, a lot of that has to do with they were my pick to win it all before the season started. But, again, to your point, Diesel, there's still a lot of football to be played. All right, who's next?
Let's go now to the Bills, the Buffalo Bills.
The Bills are always – this is a fascinating subject because the Bills are always going to be a contender with Josh Allen, right? However – if you really examine what you've seen in past years, what have they shown you in the postseason? And yeah, I know they ran into Kansas City twice, but what have they shown you that makes you believe they're a legitimate contender? That's the question I ask myself. I still do have them. And again, I'm going to keep up with this as we go through, and that way I'll have a tally of how many legitimate contenders I have. I do, though, still have them as a contender. They lost 2 of their better receivers to free agency. But right now, for whatever reason, it looks like with Joe, the offensive coordinator that was with Joe Burrow at LSU and they won the national championship. I can't think of his name all of a sudden, but with their offensive coordinator and with Josh Allen playing the way that he is, Joe Brady, thank you. They look like they are more efficient now without those two guys. So I do say, yeah, they're still a contender.
I'm gonna say pretenders, Cole, because you put them on the road. Now, if they get home field advantage through the playoffs, I think they have a really good chance. But when you get them outside of Buffalo, Cole, they're 3-2. They're an average football team, really away from their friendly confines. Now they are putting up a ton of points. They are crushing in the point differential category. As a matter of fact, you look down the rest of the NFL. Only Detroit has a higher point differential than they do. So they're outscoring teams by a lot until you put them on the road.
Yep.
And then they're in a tough spot. So I'm going to say pretender for the Bills, unless they get home field advantage.
It's interesting. Diesel, I'm with you. I don't push back on your road scenarios. I just think at the end of the day, Josh Allen's he's too good not to be competitive. And by the way,
haven't we been saying that for years?
I know. Yes, we have. Quick programming note: an hour from right now, a little less than an hour, 5:20, we'll be joined by Mark Schlereth of NFL Network, host of a very, very popular podcast that he does. It is the Stinkin' Truth podcast. We'll talk to Mark Schlereth of NFL Network at 5:20 on the show. All right, next.
Let's go with the Chiefs. That's an easy one, right?
Very
That's
easy.
A very
There's
easy
not
one.
much time to spend on that one.
Let's go with the Steelers now, Cole. They've had a little contention at the quarterback position. The Steelers, what do you think?
This one's
leading the division.
They're leading the division. So just like the Falcons, the Steelers have a good chance to make the postseason, right? They win the division. Obviously, they're in, and they somehow could be. I don't think they will be, but could be a wild card, depending on the. Well, look, I take that back. Maybe depending on their record, if they don't win the division, maybe they could be a wild card in the AFC. Diesel, with Mike Tomlin, you're always going to have this team like right there on the cusp of being really good. He's never had a losing season. He's always competitive, and Mike Tomlin seems like a coach that always gets more out of his guys than what's really there, right? A really good coach, one of the better coaches in the NFL, as I can't speak for a second. So to answer your question on the Steelers, I think they're good, but no, they're not a Super Bowl contender in my mind. I know they've had some shuffle board lately at the quarterback position, but I'm going to go no there.
See, I think the Steelers are starting to heat up, Cole. They've
wow.
won 3 in a row. They're 3-1 at home, 3-1 on the road. They're outscoring teams by a lot, 68 point differential. I think they have a really good chance. I think there's just something maybe special, sort of that undervalued, underappreciated roster. You got Russell Wilson, who's over the hill. I think there's just something special there. This might be one of those magical years where they could make a Super Bowl.
Madcraft on the stream says no on the Bills. The roster's less talented year after year, which I can't argue there. I'm not sure they can finish the season, says Madcraft, fizzle out in the wild card game. So, the Steelers, though, of the ones on the list, the Steelers are a very, very intriguing team because, like we said, we know how well they're coached, but can they continue to win the games? You mentioned they've won 3 in a row. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong because obviously the Steelers being good helps the game of football, but I say no as of right now.
Cole, let's move on to the Houston Texans.
So the Daily Wires yesterday, or maybe on Monday, we said that Stephon Diggs out with an ACL tear. That impacts this team in a tremendous way. I know CJ Stroud's still good. I know they still have dudes. And the wide receiver position, when you have a season-ending injury, it's not like it's the quarterback position, Diesel, but you went and got Stephon Diggs to get you to a Super Bowl. That's the reason you got him. You showed last year that you're going to be competitive in the postseason. I just really look at that injury, and I think it I think it could impact this team more than some people think. So this one's tough. I'm going to go no. I'm going to go no after that Stephon Diggs injury. I just think at some point down the stretch, they're going to need him, and not having him is going to hurt.
I'm with you there. I still think it's just a little bit early for CJ and the Houston Texans. He's playing really, really well. He's certainly a playoff caliber quarterback at this point, but with the thin nature of their receiver room, I don't see them being able to make a serious, legitimate push.
I'm with you there. All right, a few more.
Cole, let's go now to the Washington Commanders.
These are getting tougher and tougher. These are getting tough. So when you talk about contenders to win the Super Bowl, they have to get in the playoffs. Most of the time, they need to win their division. Well, the Commanders, Diesel, the Eagles are playing really well. They're kind of heating up right now in the NFC East. My Cowboys and the Giants aren't going to be competing, for that division when it's said and done. I do believe that. Oh man, this one's a tough one.
They're certainly sitting second right now in the NFC hunt.
Yeah, you feel like they'll get in the. You feel like they will get into the postseason.
Yeah,
but I guess my concern is the NFL's a week-to-week league. I've seen really, really, really hot teams fizzle out and fade out toward the end of the season. Right now, Washington's hot. Jaden Daniels looks like that dude right now. But Diesel, I don't know. I'm gonna say no.
Who do the Commanders have this weekend? They have the Giants this weekend, which they're going to beat the Giants. Yeah. So they're almost assuredly a playoff team. Yeah,
they're a playoff
I like
team.
That team a lot. And again, I think they're maybe just a year early to be a Super Bowl contender, but they could make a run.
Well, they're going to be
Jaden Daniels is that dude. He is the truth.
He's good, man. He's good.
I like them a lot. Cole, let's as we have just a couple of minutes left here, let's go. This one's pretty easy. The Lions, they're a contender.
They are. The only thing I would say is the only worry I have. You're playing your best football now. You want to be playing your best football at the end of the season. I don't not trust Dan Campbell, but you've got to be playing your best football when it matters. I'm just telling you, man, I've seen it happen way too many times with teams as hot as right now in the regular season, but come December, man, they just aren't playing the same style. Injuries happen, but no, I'm not going to push back there. I'm going to say yes, that the Lions are Super Bowl contenders.
And God, Cole, this would really hurt Carolina Panthers fans badly. The Minnesota Vikings.
Ew.
I know.
Ew. Sam Bradford? Is that what you're at? But what's
Darnold?
Excuse me. I went back in time, didn't I? I really did. Sam Bradford. I mean, that's the first time his name's been said on the radio in a long. They're good. They're playing good football, and I know they're not the best team in the NFL, but I believe they're on a bye this week, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they are. They're on a bye,
so they can't lose.
Wait a minute.
Got that going
Wait a minute. No. Am I wrong here? Minnesota Vikings, week 9. I don't see them. Maybe they are. No, they're a good team. Diesel, do I trust them, though, late in the season? No, I'm going to say no, they're not a contender. Do you disagree with that?
The Minnesota Vikings will face the Colts on
they do play
Sunday. Yeah.
Sunday Night Football.
They got the Colts.
I didn't scroll down far enough.
And they're going to win that football game, too.
That's my point. That they're 5-2, soon to be 6-2. They're a good team, especially at home.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated to see how this thing continues to play out, Cole. When we come back, let's get to our daily wires. Let's take a whip around the football world and see what's happening out there. Not the football world, the sports world. That's coming up next. Cole, there's a lot to get to in our daily wires, so let's not waste any time. And you go waste time.
I quit.
That's twice
I hate when I
today.
do that at the
That's
very
twice
beginning
today.
of the show too.
Come on.
Here, I'm gonna try to get. Buzz.
There you go. This is the buzz happening around the
And for those
sports
who don't
world.
know, I forget to turn my mic on.
Big announcement locally here today because local leads. Malden's Bridgeway Station will be the new home of a 10,000-seat mixed-use stadium and the future home of the Greenville Triumph and Liberty. It's set, Cole, for a grand opening in 2026.
How cool is that?
That's awesome. I know Rob Brown is all over it. He's got officials from the team and the city all over this and all over his show, so make sure you listen tomorrow morning if you're interested in that. 2 fans at Yankee Stadium last night were ejected halfway into the first inning after one pried a foul ball out of LA Dodgers right fielder Mookie Betts' glove.
God, Diesel, can we just stop the show? That might have been. I was on the phone with somebody when that happened. That might have been the coolest. And all you out there,
and he didn't even get the ball.
Throwing shade at the guy. Screw it. Man, that was awesome. That was freaking awesome. How do you not love the effort? Did you see the smile on his face?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was just
his
loved
name
it, man.
is Austin Capobianco. He grabbed his glove with both hands, ripped the ball out. I mean, come on, put this guy on a defensive line somewhere. He needs to be trying to force fumbles out there.
Yeah, strip sacks.
But he did that, and his buddy John Peter grabbed Betts' non-glove hand. Betts was mad about it.
Now, grabbing the arm, that
was wrong.
Yeah, you could cause an injury. Right.
Cole, and here's a further follow-up because, of course, he knows the guy. Rob Gronkowski revealed that he went to college with Capobianco. So he knows, he's like, I know that guy. That's my college buddy. Who's shocked? West Virginia defensive coordinator Jordan Leslie is out and is being replaced by Jeff Coons for the rest of the season. Cole, this is wild audio. This comes from UTSA head coach Jeff Traylor, who laments the fact that Memphis has so much more NIL money than they do. I want to get your reaction to this audio.
There's a reason there's a movie about Moneyball, because it's an anomaly, right? We have a tenth of their recruiting budget for a roster, and that's a tremendous disadvantage. There's a lot of those kids on that roster that we recruited and have good relationships with, and we couldn't get them. And the truth, and nobody wants to talk about it anymore, is of course the coach matters. Of course relationships matter. Facilities matter. The city matters. Winning matters. But at the end of the day, people vote with their pocketbook. And young men aren't much different than old men.
Dude, you're only 7-point dogs to Memphis.
So, like, if I said in my upset pick of the week, the team I'm picking, look, they've got 9 injuries. The head coach he had a hemorrhoid last week. His wife's cat died. And their stadium, by the way, their lights aren't working. And look, I don't think it's good, but I'm going to go ahead. I mean, good God, just go ahead and butter them up and get them ready for the excuses.
Why not just forfeit the game? If that's how you feel about the team, forfeit the game. You're 7-point home dogs to Memphis. I get it. You're not good. You're 3-5. Memphis is 7-1. Yeah, they have a lot more money than you do, but it is what it is, dude. Say we got a bunch of dogs on this team and all our dogs care about is eating, and go out there and play the damn football game, because your team is not going to react very well to that, Cole. This is wild audio as well. This comes from Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. He was asked what it's going to be like playing against his childhood favorite team this weekend in Penn State.
I'm stoked. It's going to be a homecoming for me. I grew up a Penn State fan. I wanted to go there my whole life. They didn't think I was good enough. Ooh. But I guess we'll see next week if I was.
I've been high on Penn State all week, but I think
I like that
all season. But I think Ohio State's going to murder him.
So
he's personal.
Yeah, he just made that personal.
He did.
I hope they do murder him. I hope they don't lose, Diesel, because they've already got one loss. Ohio State was my pick to win it all, and Will Howard, he's really, really good. I like that, man. I like it. You weren't good enough. Go out there and show them why you were. I like
some NFL news for you, Cole. The Patriots have announced that Drake May will be limited in practice today and wouldn't practice longer than 30 minutes as he progresses through his concussion protocol. Shane Steichen says that Joe Flacco will be the Colts quarterback, starting quarterback, quote, going forward.
Wow,
So
that's huge.
Sit down, Anthony Richardson.
I have to ask Mark Schlereth about that.
Yeah. And finally, Cole, Dave Canales announced the starter for the Carolina Panthers this week.
Oh. Here it is. I believe I've got it right here. The starter for the Panthers is?
My name's Forrest Gump.
Is that right?
Bryce Young.
Oh.
Bryce Young will be the starter Sunday against
so
the
it's
Saints.
not Forrest.
Here's what he had to say. Quote, no, because Forrest's legs worked. Here's what Dave Canales had to say. Quote, I thought he had some excellent drives. I thought he had some excellent throws in there. We're just asking Bryce to do his one part of it. And I thought he did some pretty good stuff out there today. This was from Sunday afternoon after getting stomped, after getting a garbage time touchdown to make the game not seem like a total blowout.
It's just, you want us to believe that? You want us to believe that? I mean, guys, I love Dave Canales' positivity, but at some point, man, you've got to realize this team's no good.
It's disingenuous.
Everybody sucks. I mean, they're almost on Coach Cal level of.
Now, I met with the team. There is no team.
There is no team. Like, who do you throw to? Does it matter who the quarterback is? I'm telling you, it's. I like the positivity there, Coach, but boy, I hope that positivity starts translating to something else pretty soon.
If any of y'all ever had designs on being an NFL player, why don't you just head on up to Charlotte? You can just buy one of those fan jerseys to sell at the local Walmart.
I think they're having tryouts.
Probably walk on in. Yeah.
Could be. Diesel, you and I must disagree. On Wednesdays, we fight it out, and we're excited to announce that coming up in November, we're going to be able to fight it out with Melissa Level again because we're back on the road. Ingles, they're back up and running. Distribution center, fantastic. So we're excited for that. But it's time to fight it out. 5 o'clock fight next. An old staple that used to happen every single day. Well, football season came around and different things needed to be discussed in different ways. Plus, we didn't want you Tolos just getting used to the 5 o'clock fight every day at 5 o'clock for the rest of your life.
We didn't want you to get beat as much.
Oh, that might be actually the better terminology
No,
there.
you've kind of been kicking my butt lately, and I don't
See if
like
we can
it.
keep it
I
up.
don't know who I made mad.
Well, I'm
happening?
really hoping we can keep it up today. It is the 5 o'clock fight.
It's an all-out slugfest, and nobody's leaving unscathed. 3 topics, 1 winner. It's the 5 o'clock fight on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Got a lot of new Tolos in the audience. I mean, heck, we've had in the past week people listening, Tolos listening from Texas last Friday, from the Bronx in New York yesterday, Diesel. Somerville Tom. I believe he listens. He Tolos all day, every day. So we know that while there are many new Tolos joining us, we want to tell you about the 5 o'clock fight. There are 3 rounds of the fight. Diesel and I must disagree on all 3 rounds. You, the Tolos, man, what a responsibility you have. You decide who wins and who loses. Don't be the Tolo that doesn't participate. We need your votes. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. We're also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I see Wesley. I see JB. I see DB. I see Madcraft. Brian in the stream. There's a lot of Tolos. JD's in the stream. A lot of Tolos in the stream right now. Wesley Roberts says, don't forget about me down here in floating trash can island. In Puerto Rico, Wesley. Well played on that. All right, let's get it started, Diesel. We must disagree. It's time for Round 1. Saturday, we're going to see Clemson and Louisville fight it out. You and I both know that Clemson's games have not been close as of late. The last close game they had was the Georgia game. Yeah, they didn't play the best against Florida State, but they still won comfortably. The question for round 1 remains, not just for you, but the Tolos out there. Can Louisville on Saturday night keep it close against the Tigers?
Well, define close.
Let's say
2 possessions.
Let's say 2 possessions.
2 possessions. Okay, that's 16 points or less.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they can absolutely keep it close against Clemson. Tyler Shuff is a very, very good quarterback. His numbers better than Cade Klubnik's. Granted, Tyler Shuff's been having to play entire games, and Cade Klubnik is coming out early, so that does kind of skew those numbers just a little bit. But Tyler Shuff is a very good quarterback, Cole, and let's be real. There's no noise at Clemson. It's a quiet football stadium. Clemson fans, you show up, you have a smile on your face. There's no consternation. Word. There's no like, oh my God, we have to be loud because this could get out of control. No, Clemson fans are going to go in there and treat it like it's any old Sunday drive, and you're not gonna affect the game the way that you should inside a stadium that holds 88,000 people. So yes, Louisville keeps it close, keeps it within 2 possessions.
Diesel, what are you throwing shade at the Clemson fans for today? That came out of left field. I don't know that they do. Like, it's a great story. You and I kind of need it to be close because, you what are we supposed to talk about another blowout next week with David Hood?
It's boring, honestly.
It's boring to see blowout. I know a coach who's on the right side of things would never admit to it, but when you cover blowout after blowout, sometimes it does become monotonous. Diesel, I will say, earlier in the week, I was feeling that they could keep it close, but I do believe Clemson's defense will be able to slow Louisville down. I've watched them a couple of times this year, especially against Miami. I watched that game. Their offense is good. Their offense really is good, but I don't know that they'll be good enough against Clemson's defense. And if Clemson's offense gets rolling the way they have, I don't think it's particularly close. I would say 18 points. between 2 to 3 touchdowns. So I'm not like terribly far off of you, but I don't think it's close when it's all said and done between Clemson and Louisville. What say you, texters?
Look, Cade is good. Phil Maffa is good, but Tyler Schuff and Isaac Brown also very good football teams, football players.
Yeah, they are.
And Clemson's going to have to sell out to stop that run because Isaac Brown is going to try to run it down your throats.
It's going to be a good game. I think it will be. All right, that's round 1. Here is
Round 2. Fight.
Diesel. You brought this one to the table today, and this one's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for this conversation. A1 steak sauce versus the Field. And I'm going to ask you, when you say Field,
every other steak sauce.
Any other steak sauce.
And really any other sauce you could conceivably put
any
on
other
a steak.
Condiment, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be that weird guy that puts ketchup on a steak.
Yeah, that's weird.
I guess go for
But
it.
it counts.
So you could
Okay.
include them in the Field.
Okay.
Cole, I went to dinner with my brother-in-law and his wife for her birthday a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
We went to an establishment just down the road in Simpsonville, had some steaks. And when I asked for sauce, I said, "Do you have A1?" She said, "No, we only have Heinz 57.
Oh.
I almost got up and walked out of the
You should
restaurant
have.
right then
You
and
should
there.
have, yeah.
Because A1 steak sauce is the GOAT. A1 is the GOAT. Nothing ever touches it. A1 steak sauce is so good, Cole, that they stopped the Civil War to make A1 steak sauce.
Literally stop the
Yeah, I mean it's right there on the label, Cole.
one of my favorite places in Greenville. One of my favorite places. They have steak. They have a good steak. It's in downtown, and they do not have A1 either. They only have like their
Tell me where it
home-
is so I know not to go.
It's downtown underground. That should give it away because there's only a few underground.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. I love it. But they only have like their original homemade sauces. You know, they're good. But look, it's hard to, we're splitting hairs here. A1 is good. However, I'll disagree with you here because
It's not good, it's elite.
okay, it's elite. However, you're wrong because the Field includes nothing. Nothing. The Field includes nothing. So
What?
I'm going to say the Field here because I cooked a steak probably
That's a
2 weeks ago.
Shady way to play this game.
I did though.
Because
I
no
did.
sauce at all is in the Field
It
of
is. It
other
is.
things.
It is kind of. It's kind of. I would say the Field. All right, that's round 2. Who do you side with? 71307. We have one more round. Also, coming up in about 12 minutes from now, we'll talk to Mark Schlereth, host of the Stinkin' Truth podcast, Odyssey NFL Insider. You see him on NFL Network about 12 minutes from now. But before that, we have one more round.
Final round. Fight.
Diesel, plain and simple here. Tonight, Game 5, World Series. The Yankees got it done last night. They extended the series. The question for round 3 is, do the Yankees extend it one more night and send this puppy back to LA? Do the Yankees extend the series?
Yes, they do, Cole.
Whoa.
Yes, they do. I think the Yankees have gotten hot at exactly the right time. I think now that the pressure is off the entire team, the spotlight isn't quite so much on Aaron Judge. I think Aaron Judge, I'm going to say the Yankees win. And here's my bold prediction for tonight. Aaron Judge sends 1 yard.
When's the last time? Let me look at my watch. I mean, when's the last time that? It's been a while.
They have to
It
pull
feels
out
like.
a Farmer's Almanac for that.
Really? So you're going Yankees tonight to extend the series. The question was, do they extend it? Plain and simple. Diesel says, yeah, they extend it. They win tonight and send it back to LA. Look, I want them to. I really do. I want them to extend it. However, the Dodgers are too good to let that happen. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball. They're not going to go out there and horseplay tonight and say, hey, we can get this thing at home and win it at home. As much as I want the Yankees to win tonight, and I'm not a Yankees fan, but I do enjoy the company of Tiger Pal Rachel being a Tolo right here on the show. So maybe I'll pull for the Yankees because of Tiger Power Racial and how awesome she is, Diesel. But no, the Yankees do not extend the series. The Dodgers are going to put an end to the party tonight, and they're going to get the win in New York in 5 games. The Dodgers are going to take it tonight. That is the 5 o'clock fight. Quick recap. If you just tuned in, round 1 was, can Louisville keep it close against Clemson on Saturday? Diesel says, yeah, relatively 2 touchdowns they can. Round 2, A1 steak sauce versus the field. He says A1 is elite. I say the field. Round 3, do the Yankees extend the series tonight? Diesel says they do. I say they do not. That is the 5 o'clock fight. We need your votes. Who wins? 71307. Start your text with the word fan. And if you want to suggest a fight, you can do so. Here's how.
Diesel and Co. Bryson to fight about next.
If you've got an ass, I'll kick it.
Submit your topics to diesel@thefanupstate.com. Subject line, fight on the Fan Upstate.
Diesel, how often do you eat a steak without any sauce?
Without any sauce, only when it comes from a restaurant that I've just paid a lot of money for the steak for.
I like that answer.
Yeah. But if they make a sauce that goes with it, I trust their judgment to say this is the right thing to put on the steak. So I'll do it.
No, I'm with you there. I'm a condiment guy. If they say, hey, this is what you have to.
Besides, Dan B coming after me, he says, you're just wrong. A1 is gross. 57 all day. Dan B, see, this is how I know you have the palate of a toddler, because Heinz 57 is flavored ketchup. That's all it is. Heinz 57 is flavored ketchup. Stop with this Heinz 57 garbage. Yeah.
I've never heard that before,
it's
but
fancy ketchup.
Now, let me tell you this. I may make you mad here. I cooked a steak a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know if you and the Tolos, Diesel, are fans of the Montreal steak seasoning.
I love it.
I do too. So let me tell you what I did the other night. I cooked the steak, and I went a little heavy on the Montreal, not like the world was over the top, but Montreal, butter, garlic, obviously in the cast iron, like I have said before, is the best way to cook a steak. And I needed no sauce. And I'm an A1 lover. I put no sauce on it.
Really?
Montreal, man, when you get it right, when you cook it right, medium rare, okay?
Yeah,
nothing
medium
more.
rare.
Nothing more. We know that on this show. Sometimes you just don't need this. I love A1 sauce.
I love that extra tang, that little bite to it. It's so good.
You ever dip fries in A1?
Oh, yeah.
It's
all
so
the time.
good.
All the time. Next time you make burgers at home, mix a little A1 sauce in with your burger meat.
Sometimes I've even got Psycho and poured a little A1 on a baked potato. Nice. I'm telling you, it's so good.
See?
It is good. I'm with you. We're splitting hairs in round 2. What's the stream saying? We have any votes on the stream?
Yeah,
yet?
we do. Texter, let's see. Wesley Roberts says you can get A1, but they come with high chair. I don't know what that means. Are you calling me a child for liking A1?
High chair.
Let's see here. Matt Kraft says a properly cooked steak needs no extra flavor. Z Fink 2831 Diesel, cold Diesel. If Yanks win tonight, I think they go all the way. He's calling for a comeback from down 3-0.
Z Fink
on the road too. Unbelievable. Wesley Roberts says Diesel, cold Diesel. I'm going to stop right there and not read the rest of his text message because I don't care what you say. He's hating on
your A1.
Yeah, I don't care what you have to say after you say that I win. I got the answer that I wanted, so I stopped reading.
I was going to say, how does he go Diesel, cold Diesel, but then, oh, man, you don't like your A1.
Mad Crab says Diesel wins round 1. Tigers are on upset alert.
Ooh.
Diesel wins round 2, and Diesel wins round 3. How about that?
Thanks, Mad Crab. Love you, man.
I just swept him, but then Madcraft says he disagrees with my take on steak sauce.
What?
I know.
What?
Madcraft.
What? Madcraft, what are you doing?
You're playing with our emotions is what you're doing.
Texter says, Reed Atkins says Diesel wins 3-0. The only thing more dominant than Diesel at the 5 o'clock fight is this year's Duke basketball team. Reed Atkins coming in strong.
I'm so glad the Clemson football fans are getting into the chat here.
I like it.
Clemson football, Duke basketball.
That's bad, but it's funny. Forrest, round 1 Diesel, round 2 Cole. If a steak's cooked properly, it needs no sauce. Round 3 Cole. Dodgers 4-1 says Forrest. Appreciate that. Tolo Steve, Diesel 1, Diesel 2, Cole 3. You got the win there from Tolo Steve. Nothing was a weak answer round 3. Oh, wait a minute. Tolo Steve says round 1 Diesel, round 2 Diesel, round 3 Cole. So you got the win, but not the sweep.
Nothing was a weak answer.
Let's see. John
if you
Dog.
choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Yeah, I guess so. John Dog, round 1, Cole. Round 2, Diesel. Round 3, Cole. Finally, I get a win today, and the Cowboys win. No, they didn't. Just kidding, says John Dog. Appreciate that. Throwing shade at my Cowboys. Trey in Kentucky says Montreal seasoning's the bomb. Steak sauce is Lee and Perrins. Montreal's, it is. There's nothing better. I mean, like, again, you don't want to go too heavy. I almost went too heavy.
I love going too heavy. I love making my spaghetti sauce extra flavorful. I like putting a lot in my burgers. I like putting extra on my steak. I almost want it crusted on there, Cole.
Tolo Steve, A1's great with a medium rare steak and even better on a baked potato skin. Go Buckeyes. It's good conversation. We have food conversation and it gets a lot of hits. I like it. Now I'm hungry, so I'm upset with you on that, but we got to run Diesel because we have
Mark Schlereth, big time guest, NFL Insider, Odyssey NFL Insider Mark Schlereth, and the host of the Stinkin' Truth podcast. He's going to join us next right here on the Fan Upstate. Tolos, it's Wednesday, which means it's time to get in your upset picks. Send us your name, your game, and the spread. An outright upset this weekend. If you think you can call it, you could score some points in the Upset Picks Challenge, brought to you by Ingles Markets.
We are joined now by Odyssey NFL insider Mark Schlereth, host of the Stinkin' Truth podcast. Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo game day be delicious. Mark Schlereth, appreciate you hopping on with us, man. Listen, we're in Carolina Panther country here in the upstate of South Carolina, not an hour from Charlotte. So sadly, unfortunately, that's where we're going to start. Not going to start with the positives, the most or the best teams in the NFL. The Carolina Panthers have a lot of issues, but when you look at this team and this organization, Mark, do you put more blame on Bryce Young or do you put more blame on ownership?
Oh, I put more blame on ownership. I mean, first and foremost, listen, Bryce Young did some amazing things in college football, no question about it. But, my understanding is the football minds at Indianapolis at the time wanted C.J. Stroud, and the ownership wanted Bryce Young. And so that's how it's been relayed to me. Whether that's true or not, I don't even care. It feels that way. And Bryce Young, at this point in time in his career, is not an NFL quarterback. He's just not. And listen, man, that's not personal. That's not besmirching him. He is a great kid, but he doesn't have the requisite skill set to play quarterback in the National Football League. And I think most people who know this game were very concerned right off the start based on just his size alone. And so, that's an issue. And then what you gave up for him to move up and to do that is another issue. And so, you look at this Deontay Johnson, and I understand, you traded him today, but, you traded a fifth for a sixth. I mean, you essentially moved up 15 places or something of that nature, and you gave him away. I get it. I mean, I get you're trying to revamp some of your draft picks and all that, but fifth and sixth rounders don't do a whole lot for me. I don't know if they do a whole lot for the fan base either.
Yeah, Mark, we've seen some of the numbers behind this trade, and the Ravens are taking about $750,000 off the Carolina Panthers book. That's certainly not going to help them a lot when it comes to cap space going into next year. When you look at a team that's as down as the Carolina Panthers are and bereft of talent as they are, how much cap space does a team in that position really need to legitimately start building a roster back up into being a winning football team?
Well, really what you need is not even cap space. It's really draft picks. You're going to have to build it from the draft. And it's always easy to say, but you look at the Detroit Lions, what they did with Brad Holmes in that organization, they have won. Go through their draft, go through the Detroit Lions and go look at all their drafts the last 4 or 5 years. Like, they were 3-13 Dan Campbell's first year, and they started 1-6. And then all of a sudden they took off, and it's amazing what they've done. You look at the last 4 or 5 years of their draft, they have just flat hit on everything. And it really is amazing what they've been able to accomplish. So that's where it starts. And what the draft gives you more than anything else is salary cost certainty. You're not spending a ton of money on young players, and you've got them locked up for, the first rounders, you got them locked up for at least 3 or 4 years. And, then after the first round, you've got them locked up for 2 or 3 years before you have, or 3 years before you can even by rule, give them a contract. It's what's going on with Brock Purdy right now. So the bottom line is that's where you're going to build. Like, when you're talking about free agency, and I know free agency is a big deal and everybody loves it, and everybody talks about it, but you're spending dollars to chase pennies in free agency. You're spending A+ money on B- players. And that's what free agency is. And ultimately, like, if you're going to plug a hole, I get it. That works. But you're not building a team that way. You spend way too much money on declining assets, if you will. So you've got to hit in the draft, and you've got to be patient, and then you've got to believe in what you're building. And what I know about Dave Tepper and what I've seen with Dave Tepper and like patience is not a virtue with that guy. I mean, he wants to win now, and they don't have an NFL roster. I did the first game of the season against the Saints, and I was going through their roster. They picked 7 guys up off the waiver wire, and we're starting 5 of the 7. So you picked up 7, guys that were somebody else's garbage that they threw away, and scooped them up and instantly inserted them into your starting lineup. You want to talk about bereft of talent, and you think you're going to win, right? And you think it's coaching. Oh, my coaches aren't getting it done. No, dude, you don't understand what NFL football is all about. Yeah, listen, you're a brilliant businessman. You've made billions of dollars, and kudos to you. Great for you. But you don't know dick about football. Pardon my French.
Insider Calls brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. Mark, before we move off of this horrible franchise, you mentioned the draft. I asked David Newton of ESPN this question a couple of days ago. Are you a kind of guy that wants to build this team or build the team up and then at some point down the road add a quarterback? Or do you believe that finding the right quarterback, even though the team's not good, is priority number one?
Yeah, I'm always going to build the team from the inside out. And, the quarterback obviously is the number one position. But unfortunately in the NFL, and this is what you fall into, pick a quarterback, any quarterback. Hey, there's 6 guys that are going to go in the first round. Just pick any of them. They're all going to be good. No, they're not. The history of this league will show you that if you take 6 quarterbacks in the first round, one of them is going to be a superstar, one's going to be a really good starter, and then 4 of them aren't going to be worth a squirt of urine. That's just the history of the league. And so it's not about just picking a player. It's about picking the right player. And right, that's an inexact science. I mean, you don't know. But there are some things, some indicators that I think really smart teams figure out and really dumb teams ignore. And one of the things about the draft that's really interesting to me is, especially in the first round, people get enamored by intangibles or tangibles, height, weight, speed, right? 40 times. Do yourself a favor. Look up the top 40 times in the history of the NFL draft, and I'll show you, like the top 20, and I'll show you 18 guys who can't play. Running a fast 40 means you're really good at running 40s. It's not a transferable skill to playing. Look at the top 20 bench pressers of all time in the NFL Combine. I'll show you 18 guys who can't play. Being great on the bench press test of the NFL Combine doesn't make you a good football player. It makes you great at benching. And to me, it's a cover your ass mentality of the NFL Combine and draft. Well, look, I did my job. This guy's the fastest guy at his position. This guy's the strongest guy at his position. Doesn't matter. I played with a guy by the name of Tommy Naylor in the weight room, by NFL parlance, weak as a kitten. I mean, weak as a kitten. On the field, one of the strongest mothers I ever played with. Leverage, hands, everything else. Couldn't, compared to the rest of us on the offensive line, couldn't hold a candle to any of us when it came to lifting weights. On the field, he was the strongest one on our team. Just leverage-wise, he was the best leverage player I've ever played with. You can't measure that. You've got to actually study film and look at guys and go, that's transferable. That guy can play. And regardless of what the stupid 40 time is, or the bench press time, or how many times a guy can do burpees. Listen, when we start lining up and doing burpees and running 40s and doing bench presses, and that determines who wins and loses, then I'll pay attention to the NFL Combine. The NFL Combine is a freaking joke. I didn't get invited to the NFL Combine, and I started for 12 years. It's a joke. It's It's made for television drama, and it has nothing to do with whether you can play or not.
We're talking to Mark Schlereth, Odyssey NFL insider, 3-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler. You talk there about tangibles and intangibles. What does it mean inside of a locker room to have a guy like Bradley Bozeman dive in and protect his quarterback the way that he did in that ugly, ugly play where Nathan Shepard twisted Justin Herbert's leg? Talk about guys like that in the locker room and how that really enamors them to the team.
You'd love to have dudes protect your quarterback. You love to have dudes protect each other. You know, it's funny. I had this conversation on Breakfast Ball, the show I host on Fox FS1. And, like, there are very few places in life where you celebrate somebody else's success like it's your own. Your children and sports. That's about it. Hey, like, seriously, if somebody gets a promotion over you on the radio station, you're like, hey, congratulations, that's great. Behind closed doors, you're like, that's something, I'm better than him. Like, or better than her, and I deserve that. Like, that's corporate America, right? I deserve that. I'm getting screwed. This is not, I'm the victim here. You play a professional sport, man. I've always go back to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is 25-1 as a starter with Alabama. He plays a horrible first half in I think it was a semifinal, college football semifinal game. They pull him at halftime. He knows he's done. His Alabama career is over because your guy, Tua Tagovailoa drives them down, scores, ends up driving in and getting that final touchdown. And on that first touchdown after halftime, they score, and Jalen Hurts runs down. They didn't make a big deal of it. He runs down the football field, comes off the bench, runs down the football field, and celebrates with Tua like he just threw the touchdown. Now, you're never going to play again at Alabama. You just got usurped. Your job just got taken from you. And I would venture to guess that most people would be sitting on the bench pouting and playing the victim. He's the first guy down the football field jumping and celebrating and celebrating with Tua. That's why I love sports, man. I never scored a touchdown all my years of playing. I started playing when I was in the 7th grade. Never scored a touchdown. I celebrated everyone like I'm the guy who scored. And I love that about that. Like, you celebrate your kids' victories, but to celebrate somebody else's success and really to be joyous about it is why sports to me are absolutely beautiful. So anyhow, that's where I stand, and that's why I love it.
Mark, just a few minutes ago, we talked about one bad owner. Let's talk about another. I can say that as a Dallas Cowboy fan who's been a Cowboy fan my entire life. Worked for the Dallas Cowboys for a short time. But right now, when you look at that joke of a franchise in terms of what they're doing on the field, it doesn't really seem like Jerry Jones's words mean much. He can tell the entire world until he's blue in the face that he wants a Super Bowl more than anyone. However, I don't believe it. I don't think Cowboy fans believe it. Do you believe it?
Well, no. I mean, what did he say? He came out yesterday and said, hey, man, I'm hoping for a fairy book ending. That's great. You want a fairy book ending? Like, hope is like hope is not a plan. There's nothing actionable about hoping. Like, when I'm watching teams make trades and bolster their roster and going out and getting guys, Kansas City goes out and gets D-Hop, and the Jets get Devontae Adams, and Amari Cooper goes to the Bills, and the Minnesota Vikings lose their left tackle. They go get one from Jacksonville. And, there's an actionable plan there. Jerry Jones is hoping that, like, the magic fairy comes out and sprinkles dust on the Cowboys, and all of a sudden they're going to start winning. Like, the Cowboys are all hat, no cattle. Like, there's nothing about the Cowboys that I look at and go, yeah, like, that's getting better, or yeah, they fixed that. They haven't addressed anything. And he comes out and says, well, I have this belief that we're going to get better. Or like, how? Like, how are you going to get better? You haven't done anything to address it. You don't have an actionable plan. You're just going, I hope we're better. So I'm 100% with you. The other issue is like Mike McCarthy. I think Mike McCarthy's a damn good coach, but I'll put my player hat on. If you're in that locker room, do you truly think that Mike McCarthy has any juice whatsoever? He's on a lame duck deal. He's going to get fired. Like I said this last year, the Cowboys will win a lot of regular season games, and they'll come into the playoffs and take a dump in their helmet because that's who the Cowboys are. And ultimately, Jerry Jones consistently emasculates his head coach. Just emasculates the guy. And so go back to last year. Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy walk in the locker room, and Trey Lance is sitting in there. Oh, we got a new teammate. It's Trey Lance. Oh, yeah, Jerry traded for him last night. Didn't tell anybody. Like, don't you think if you're going to make a trade, you'd address the guy who's calling the plays? And let me just tell you this. Like, Trey Lance can't play. Like, Trey Lance coming off an ankle injury. Trey Lance was a first-round draft choice. There's a reason that, that they got rid of him. Yeah, he got injured, but they realized before he got injured that they were in trouble. Like, they made a mistake. And don't you think the guy who's making the football decisions, don't you think you should consult with that guy before you make a decision to bring a guy in there willy-nilly without talking to anybody? I mean, again, if I'm playing in there, I'm like, Mike McCarthy's shoes rips my ass about something. I'm like, yeah, well, he ain't going to be here anyhow, and I am. So what do I care? That dude ain't in charge. Oh, let me take the back staircase up to Jerry's office and complain about the head coach. Like, it's such a dysfunctional organization, and all organizations. We started with Carolina. Organizations that are dysfunctional I don't care how good the players are. They won't win championships. Mark my words.
We're talking to Mark Schlereth, Odyssey NFL Insider. Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. Mark, we've had nearly 20 years of sending NFL games to London, to Germany. When might we see Roger Goodell make a real push to develop an NFL European division? When I tune in, the stands are packed. The fans are passionate. What are they waiting for? It feels like a bleep or get off the pot deal here. How much more of a sample size does he need? And how much longer can they keep sending subpar matchups over there and hoping that it catches fire?
Well, they can keep sending subpar matches because the people don't know any better. So, I opened up Tottenham Stadium over in London. It was the first NFL game. It was Chicago versus the Raiders. And it was so cool driving in because all these hooligans they don't even know what they're rooting for. They just buy NFL jerseys. It's every jersey in the NFL is represented. And so then it comes down to, what team you're going to put over there. Well, Ashad Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, would love to go over there. And I think anybody who has to deal with the NFL and has to go to Jacksonville to call a game would much rather go to London. So, because Jacksonville, no offense to Jacksonville, but Jacksonville hey, just keep this between us. You guys live in South Carolina. Jacksonville's an armpit. So, but don't tell the people in Jacksonville I said that. Just keep that. Guy code. Don't be a jerk. All right. Don't get me in trouble with the NFL and with Fox.
So don't post that as a podcast.
That's right. Absolutely.
No, just keep that between us. This guy code. Keep that between us. Just guys being guys. All right.
Mark, great stuff, man. We sure do appreciate you taking time to hop on with us, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Absolutely. You guys take care.
Mark Schlereth, you heard him right here on the Fan Upstate. Appreciate him joining us. That was Odyssey NFL Insider Mark Schlereth, host of the Stinkin' Truth podcast. Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo game day be delicious. And tell you what, man, that was fantastic. Really, really good stuff there.
I thought you were going to pull a muscle reaching around to hit the dump button.
I didn't know what was coming.
Yeah,
I didn't know what was coming. When he said Jacksonville is a what did he say?
I thought we were going to get a 4-letter word followed by the word hole.
I did too.
Appreciate Mark Schlereth, man. What a fantastic guest. The Tolos texted in, one Tolo said, dang good guest, guys. Great call, man. He's the best.
He's good, man. He was fantastic. Harold, I do see you. We'll get to you, man. Sorry about that, and we'll get back into the upset picks next. Appreciate Mark Schlereth hopping on with us. You heard that right here on the Fan Upstate. Texter says, does Dukes know about this betrayal? Well, Texter, we love Dukes, but when we have an Odyssey Insider on that's brought to you by Hellman's, guess what? Got to talk about Hellman's.
I sure like playing ping pong with my Flexo Light ping pong paddle.
That's right. Good job, Forrest.
You
NFL.
read the read, baby.
Read the read. Let's get to Harold. Harold's been waiting long enough before we get back into the upset picks. Harold, sorry for making you hold through that entire interview, but what's on your mind, man? Good to hear from you.
Oh, nothing. Listen, I don't mind holding. It don't make no difference to me. But what I want to talk a little bit about, maybe some stats made last night on the World Yankees and Dodger game. Said the winner of the first three never lost the fourth. Well, the Yankees done that. So that should have been history. But there at the end, they revised that. That hadn't been done since 1964. You know. And then they made the other statement that the one at 3-1 never made it to Game 6. Well, I want y'all, if you go back, if you got to know, go back to 1968 with the Detroit Tigers and I believe it was the Cincinnati Reds. That's Denny McLean. Make sure that was his 30-game win year. They were down 3-1 and they won it all. And they said that was nobody had ever done that. So they made a miss error on that one, you know. So Major League Baseball has got more stats than they probably tell you how many times you breathe between bats, you know, and all that. But
Harold, was the stat because you obviously are a fantastic stat guy when it comes to Major League Baseball. The stat about Freddie Freeman being the only person to ever have a home run in 6 straight World Series. Did you see that?
Oh yeah. That's true. I mean, you know, I hadn't been on baseball. I mean, when I was younger, man, I lived and ate baseball and all these sports. But I'm talking about, what I seen that sign in the audience said, "Freddie, please stop." A Yankee fan was holding that up out there. I got tickled at that, you know. But you know, if they win tonight, Diesel, it's hard to listen. If anything's gonna be broken, the Yankees going to be part of it. Whether it's positive or negative, they set so many records over their heyday, you know, because their championships never be broken. None of us have enough lifetimes left to see that. But I'd just like to know more on that 68 Detroit. I believe the Cincinnati Reds, because I know I listened to the whole series. Even when I worked, we had the radio on, keep up with it. But they were down 3-1. Now, whether they didn't move, whether it wasn't down 3-0, so that only difference I could have been, they might have won one of the games of the first 3. But I do, they were down 3-1, and they had to come back and win the last 3. You know, sweep the last 3.
Who do you like tonight to win, Harold?
If you could do that for me, I'd appreciate it. And listen, I'm going to hold my pick off, my upset pick to Friday.
That's fine.
I need to know how many points is Michigan getting against, against Oregon.
We're going to look that up. Harold, hang on for us
and
one
while
second
Diesel's looking that up, while Diesel's looking that up, Harold, who do you like tonight, Yankees or Dodgers?
Well, I like the Yankees, but if they win tonight, it means my Friday night football game will get knocked off of Fox, Carolina. But, you know, listen, if the Yankees win tonight, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the Dodgers. I know they're going to be home, but it's going to be an interesting, but, you know, record made and be broken.
True.
That's what I'm saying, you know. Baseball does it all the time. So, but my upset pick, there's 2 of them. Diesel, you and I'm not gonna go with Vanderbilt because I don't want to jinx you there. So, but Diesel, I like Texas Tech. A good friend of mine went there. I served with in the Navy, and he passed away several years. I've always pulled for Texas Tech. If Carolina had Texas Tech's offense, I believe they'd be undefeated.
Well, Harold, that game, the Oregon-Michigan game, Michigan to be getting 14.5 points. So you said you're going to hold it until Friday before you get it in. So think on it a little bit.
I'm going to try to get something over 10 points. I'm looking, and I'm also looking at UL Monroe against Marshall.
I looked at that one.
Play.
I looked at that one.
That's on my mind too.
Yep.
And you know, and is Indiana's quarterback back?
They don't know yet.
They don't know.
Still day to day.
Okay, that's still in doubt because they're getting what, 7.5, something like that.
8 as of right now, but again, we lock these things in at 3:00, so it might have moved a little bit since 3:00.
Okay, guys, listen, enjoy the show. I
Thanks,
listen to you
Harold.
every day now. So
Thanks, Harold. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, Harold's got he's got such a rich lifetime of knowledge,
God.
going so far back on those sports.
He
Man,
does, man.
I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
I don't know what I had today.
Who hit the game-winning home run in the '68 World Series?
That's impressive.
He could probably pull it out of the air without even having to think about it.
I'm with you. I love hearing from him. He's
fascinating.
super, super smart. So, real quick recap. You with your upset pick, you got burned by Oregon last week. Who are you going with this week?
I chose, let me find it here. I took Texas Tech plus 14.5 over Iowa State. Undefeated Iowa State, by the way.
Texas Tech and 14.5. I'm going Diesel Pittsburgh to knock off SMU.
I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, it might be.
I think it's a really good
I just
pick.
wish it was a little more on the spread. I wish the point spread was a little more. 7.5 is the spread. The Mustangs are favored by 7.5. So I'm going with the Penn.
8 Tolos who have taken that one, including you. So you and 7 others. Mason Brew. Let's see, JB, JC. Let's see, Gus M and P1 Panther Boy.
Let's
have
go.
all taken. Oh, and let's see, Brandon and Spartanburg and Trey from Kentucky as well.
Let's go.
We got so many, man. This document is getting huge. Welcome, by the way, to SC Seminoles fan. He's in the challenge for the very first time, taking Michigan State plus 7.5 against Indiana. We've also got MTC Scott, the marketing manager from MTC Federal Credit Union. He's now a Tolo.
Let's go, Mark.
Listening to the show.
You said Scott?
Scott. Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Scott.
Welcome, Scott, to the challenge. When we come back, Cole, I want to go a little more existential. I want to go big picture discussion here. What's the best format to decide a champion? Do we really think that a 7-game series is best, or do you like all that drama and intrigue of a single game Super Bowl national championship? We'll get into that quickly next on the Fan Upstate. Cole, we got into a highly contentious debate earlier about A1 sauce versus the field. You cheated, and you said that nothing counts as the field. I still think you cheated, and that's the only reason you got any votes in the 5 o'clock fight. But Cole, it's not even up for debate. If it's Dukes versus the field, it's Dukes.
Oh yeah, there's no debate.
I try to explain to my wife all the time, Ashley, who doesn't really understand the greatness of mayonnaise. She's always been a mayonnaise hater until you start mixing it in with things. She's like, "Oh my God, this is delicious." I'm like, "Yeah, it's the mayonnaise."
Potato salad.
Yeah,
mayonnaise makes potato salad.
Grilled cheese sandwich. You grill it with mayonnaise on the outside instead of butter, and it makes it better.
Corn on the cob.
Exactly.
No,
God, you just duck season wabbit seasoned me into admitting that mayonnaise on corn is good. God, I'm so mad at you right now. I love myself.
You know what? I've always felt like those that hate mayonnaise have a special place waiting for them when they die. I mean, come on. How do you not like mayonnaise?
And how do you not like the purity of a one-game winner-take-all situation for a championship, Cole? One game to rule them all, as they say. And that's the way it happens in the NCAA tournament. NCAA tournament is fantastic. That's how it happens in the college football playoff. And the college football playoff is fantastic. And survive and advance, right? That's the name of the game. So why, Cole, do we have some sports futzing around with the format and saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to extend this. We're going to make it 7 games. We're going to make it 30 games. We're going to make it 110 games to decide who wins the championship. For God's sakes, if you can't figure it out in 4 hours, it ain't worth doing.
You know, I'm going to push back. I'm going to disagree with you because, you know, on Friday of last week, when you and I were doing the show, I read a stat that talked about how even the series was before the series started, because we know the Dodgers won the first 3 games, and after that, it didn't look real even. However, there was a stat out there, and of course, I don't have it in front of me now, but that said these would have to be played like 700 some odd times in order to find out a true winner because of how even the teams are. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place here. I like the one-offs. I think it truly does depend on the sport. For football, the Super Bowl is a one-off. It's a one contest, one game where you have to win your championship.
And that's what makes it great.
It does make it great. I like it. But at the same time, this is why I say I'm stuck, because I love a 7-game series in baseball, and I also love a 7-game series in the NBA Finals. It almost, Diesel, for me, instead of it being just one movie, it becomes a sequel. And I remember my favorite
it becomes like
all
the
time.
MCU that lasted too long.
Well,
it got
sometimes
terrible by the end.
I'll tell you this: some of my favorite sports moments, Diesel, have not been the one-off games. Some of my favorite sports moments as a sports fan have been the series. I will always tell you, till the day that I die, that my all-time favorite sports moment was when LeBron James and the Cavaliers were down 3-1 to Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors and came back and won the series and made history and did something that had never been done. Without a 7-game series, you don't get those kind of stories.
Okay. So I'm going to destroy your whole argument right here. No,
don't do that.
7-game series. You know why? It's an odd number because you got to win. You got to win a best of, right? Yeah. What happens? What scenario do you have after 6 games when you go play the 7th? A tie, a 3-3 tie. So it's one game to rule it all. One game to decide who wins the championship, Cole.
It doesn't always end in a 3-3.
So you said earlier, what was the number? 700 times a game would have to be played between the Yankees and the Dodgers to really determine. So really, and I'm no mathematician here, though I did take 8th grade algebra.
Yeah, I felt it.
Cole, I do remember statistical significance, and 7 out of 700 is a mere eyedropper in the ocean.
It is.
Of the number of games. So what you're telling me is we still don't know after 7 games who's the better team.
Well,
because the statistics tell you they have to play 700 times.
And according to the model, to get the exact winner, let's say in that 700 game scenario, but 7's more than 1. So ideally, you'd have a better picture, a better understanding of who the champion.
Again, you could play 700 games, and Aaron Judge still wouldn't have a home run.
Well, he probably wouldn't.
Series.
But I really think it depends on the sport. Like, I believe that the way sports are, especially with the game of football and the Super Bowl, you're going to find out in 4 quarters who the better team is.
Yeah.
You're not going to find out in one game if Cleveland's better than Golden State. And I don't know, Diesel, I cannot give you a written statement on why that is. I've asked myself that my entire life of why baseball and basketball, you feel like you need 7-game series. And maybe it's because the team is constructed different. You have a fewer number of players in some sports like basketball. And then baseball, you obviously have 11 on the field, or football, you have 11 on the field. I don't know the exact reasoning of why it's that way, but I truly do feel like football's better for 1 game and baseball and basketball is better for 7.
Only one sport needs to have 7 games, and that is baseball, because in baseball, you can't put your stars out there every single game, right? Like, you've got 3-4 aces on a roster, and you could, I guess you could theoretically, you could pitch an entire game with your starting aces. But that's not how baseball is played. That's not how you manage a roster and a lineup, right? So, you could go 3, 4, 5 games before your ace comes back around, and you're not likely to put the best guys in the game. So that's why you have to have a 7-game series there, Cole. But in basketball, your stars are on the court every single game. In hockey, your stars are on the court every single game. In football, your stars are on the field in every single game. So
I would just be
baseball is the only one that needs a 7-game series.
I'd be so disappointed. And I mean so disappointed, Diesel, that if at the end of an entire NBA season or a hockey season, it all came down to 1 game.
Hockey season feels like it's like 10 years long.
It does.
Forever
and
long.
NBA's just a little bit shorter, not much shorter. But the thing about it is, those sequels that I've talked about, those conglomerations of movies that we've seen in the NBA with those 7-game series, you'll have Draymond go down. You'll have Draymond kick a guy in the nuts and get suspended. You'll have Kevin Love go down. You have Kyrie Irving go down. And you have guys who have to step up that make it so entertaining to watch. And I just would hate, Diesel, for it all to come down to 1 game. I remember watching that series one year, 2016, I think, where Kyrie Irving got hurt and Matthew Dellavedova had to come in and play point guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I would hate for that to happen, for Matthew Dellavedova to be the point guard in the 1 game that they played. And just because of 1 injury where Kyrie has an ankle sprain, he doesn't get to play, and that's the only game we get.
Cole, here's some stats for you. 21 times in its history, the World Series has ended in a sweep. 20 times in the NHL's history, the Stanley Cup has ended in a sweep. 9 times in the NBA Finals, it's been a sweep. It happens a lot. It happens a lot. In which case, you didn't need 7 games, or you didn't need 4 games. You didn't need 4 games to determine who was the better team.
But you wouldn't know unless you had 4.
Well, okay. Plus, Cole, you can have blowouts. Here's the one downside to having the 1 game to rule them all is, especially if you look at it in college football playoff terms, there's blowouts all the time in the national championship game. In 10 years, Cole, 7 times the national championship game was decided by 14 points or more, which in my mind, and I think we debated this a couple of months back before the season started, and we didn't have a lot of games to talk about. 7 times, 14 points or more. In my mind, 14 points or more in a national championship game is a blowout. These are supposed to be the 2 best teams in America placed into the 14 playoff because they were one of the 4 best teams in America. And if you're getting beat by more than 2 scores, that's a blowout.
Yeah.
And 4 times in 10 years. So 40% of the time, national championship games in college football are decided by 21 points or more.
Tolo Steve on the text line, 71307, keyword fan. Tolo Steve says, it's all about the money. The NFL rakes in more money than baseball in basketball. So to make up for some of that lost revenue, they have longer playoff series. And you know what? It's gonna be hard to tell Stevie's wrong there. I mean, it is about money.
I've never been more disappointed, and I say this facetiously, just so you know. I've never been more disappointed in a Tolo in all my life.
Why is that?
JD gets in on the stream and says, wait, what did I miss? JD is a Tolo, which means turn it on, leave it on.
I guess he missed the whole show.
He missed the L part of the leave it on. He turns it on, turns it off, turned it back on. JD, what have you been doing?
We don't know when you last tuned us off.
But I don't know what you missed today, JD, but or when you tuned in, so I don't know what you heard, but you did possibly miss Mark Schlereth, Odyssey NFL Insider. Absolutely phenomenal guest that we had on just about an hour ago. That's available on the podcast. Just a great, great interview. We also had Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered, who joined us earlier during the show at 3:20. Chris Phillips is blowing up. He is everywhere these days. He is being contacted left and right. The president calls him and says, hey, Chris, I need to know who to take this week in our presidential upset picks challenge. Who do I take out of the SEC? They call Chris Phillips. And we're going to replay that conversation that we had with Chris Phillips coming up here in just about 10 minutes or so.
Good to have you back in, though, by the way,
I don't know
JD.
what you missed, JD, but I can tell you whatever it was a lot.
I don't know when you tuned us out, buddy.
Yeah. Wire to wire.
It's
Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson right here on the Fan Upstate. Still looking for your upset picks. Those of you Tolos, a lot of you love to get your picks in on the first day, and we appreciate that. Last week we had somewhere in the range of 60 picks.
Can you tell how many we have right now?
We are at 51 picks right now, so
bad.
a little shy. You're a little shy, and what that tells me is there's going to be some Tolos who maybe forget to get their picks in this week.
So you're saying we had 60 last week on the very first day. We've got 40, I don't even say 45, more like 38, 39 minutes left of actual show time. Tolos, we've got to have you step up to the plate. I did see Big Mick, excuse me, chime in.
Big what?
43. That was Mark that said that, not me. Mark said that word. That's what you missed, JD. You missed me not having time to hit the dump button after.
That's true.
Mark said a word that rhymes with Mick.
It's a dumpable offense.
That, by the way, was the first time that word was used on our show. So that was.
I don't know. I didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
I don't hear
what.
So in case our managers are listening right now, nothing.
Philip Rollins says Louisville plus 10.5 versus Clemson. Again, Tolo Big Mick also took Louisville plus 10.5 versus Clemson. Ben and Simpsonville Diesel wanted Vandy plus 6.5 versus Auburn. I believe we've had several of those now. Trey in Kentucky wanted Pitt SMU for 7.5. Brandon in Spartanburg also took Pitt 7.5 SMU. Look, I told you, that is the game to pick. It's only 7.5 points. I realize that that's not going to get you really far in this challenge, but I feel good about it. I really do. I don't know. And again, maybe Pitt comes out Diesel this week and looks incredible. But the Pitt team that I watched on Saturday night on that television that I have, and I had to watch Pitt or Duke just absolutely blow their chances of winning the game. SMU turned it over 6 times. SMU defensively didn't look good. Offensively, they were just vanilla. So I don't know. I know they're ranked. I know they're a good team, but I just don't know. When you talk about Clemson and Miami, I don't know that SMU's on the same level, Diesel. I just don't know that SMU has the horses to go toe-to-toe with Clemson or Miami, and I'm not a SMU believer right now.
So, Cole, we have a potential lead change brewing at the tippy top of the Upset Picks Challenge. Twisted Whisker, who is currently in the lead with 54.5 points. Twisted Whisker has taken Vandy plus 7 over Auburn, which I think has a very good shot of hitting because I don't trust Hugh Freeze. I think things are getting mighty hot on Freeze's seat. That ice cube is about to melt. Well, he's taking that one for 7 points. And if he hits, that's great. He's got 7 points. But John Dog, who currently sits in second place, in third place. My apologies. John Dog sits in third place with 46 points. John Dog has taken Texas Tech over Iowa State for 13.5. So that right there, Cole, is worth 6.5 points.
Okay.
He could very much be right there on the cusp. He could be taking over Noel's spot. And Noel, who let's see, Noel, this is a great radio here, guys. Noel is taking Louisville plus 11. So Noel's pick is worth 4 more points than Twisted Whiskers. So if Whisker doesn't hit, Noel and John Dog do hit, they're both going to jump Twisted Whisker.
I don't know what's going to happen there, but I can tell you this. Tolos, if you picked Pitt over SMU like I did, next Monday, you'll be happy. I'm telling you, you'll be happy.
Tolos, if you pick Duke over Miami, Cole is going to find you, and with his certain set of skills,
it's not happening.
Going to do bad things.
I'm telling you, man,
because he's
I would
mad.
lose a lot of money. Real quick, Johnny Carrots, listener of the show, put this on Twitter, so I wanted to give it to our audience. Pretty bad traffic right now. This was 14 minutes ago. If you're traveling up 85, or if you're traveling 85 southbound out of Greenville, traffic is backed up at a standstill. Exit off of exit 46. But just stay in the left lane and you can pass tons of traffic and then get back on 85 on the other side. You can do the same thing to exit 44. So 85 southbound, which...
Well, Cole wants you just to use your GPS because he gets mad at people
Well,
who
if you
don't
use your
GPS,
you will know there's a wreck. You will see the red.
I think you could see all the taillights.
Like, let's do, for example, right now. I go northbound when I go home because I go to Bowling's. All right, let's do it right now. This is why. Diesel, prime example of why you use a GPS. Right now, it says I'm 46 minutes from where I live, okay, from my house. And guess what? A lot of that, it's not just southbound. It's northbound
too.
Yeah. A lot of that has to do with some wrecks. I mean, you get the red and the yellow dots. 85 right now is a parking lot. It has me getting off at the airport, Diesel, going through Greer, Inman, over to Highway 9.
You know,
I hate 85.
I wish, Cole, I wish that I lived on a property with some space, some hills, a pond, something big enough that I could get like a big old riding lawnmower, like where I have to. Yeah. I have to go buy a big fancy riding lawnmower.
Yeah.
You have no idea how badly I want that in my life, Cole.
You have no idea how much I hate 85.
But I don't have to drive to get that, Cole, unless you want to pay a ton of money. You have to buy somewhere up and down I-85. Like you have to get on I-85 to get there, is my point, to get to the radio station. But I don't have to do that. I sacrifice the space for a better drive. I know I never hit traffic on the way home.
Well, you're lucky.
It's great.
You know, there are some days when I leave here.
Nana boo-boo.
And I get home at 8:15.
What?
Yeah.
I leave here at 7:10 and I am home by 7:20.
Yeah, it must be nice.
Every day.
I'm never home that early. Even if traffic's not bad, it's 7:45 before I get home. Every day.
The only time I ever hit traffic is in Malden when they have like a beach music Friday nights. And I know that it's there. But if I get caught in it, you know what? I roll down the windows and I rock out to some beach music. And everybody's happy. Everybody's in Hawaiian shirts. It's fun.
Now you'll get caught in Malden for the
don't say that.
For the soccer stadium.
Don't say that.
Soccer, baby.
I don't have to go by there either.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, I don't have to go that way either.
Oh, you suck.
It's awesome.
Chris Phillips, Diesel. We talked to him earlier in the show. We'll have Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered, next.
seem to have fizzled out. I have to explain to Chris Phillips that we're talking about soccer, which the Europeans call football, because he only cares about one kind of football, and that is the American football, where you play football not with your feet, but with the ball shaped like a lemon. We're joined right now by Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Welcome into the show, number one, Chris. I'm sorry for your loss in the Upset Picks Challenge, but hey, everybody lost in the Upset Picks Challenge last week. How are you, pal?
He's a Cole. I'm doing good, man. It was a fun weekend in Nashville. Almost had that Vandy plus 17.5 or plus 18 number hit, but Greenville Triumph. I'm familiar. Good soccer club, if you will. I was actually just checking right before this at the Swamp Rabbits schedule. I have to get my hockey fix coming up soon. So, no, it's a great time, man. Again, Nashville was a blast, and excited to chat with you guys.
Chris, we were talking in the very last segment about South Carolina and A&M at home, and we played the audio of Dorothy clicking her heels, wanting to go home, and the entire mantra of like most of the time the home field advantage is where a team thrives. However, it really hasn't been in 2024 for South Carolina. Can you put a finger on why this team's played better on the road than at home?
Yeah, it's interesting. Earlier in the season, Cole, I had a take that, it just kind of feels like at least this season, home field advantage has almost been somewhat overrated. I think we've seen that sort of course correct itself when you saw the environment at Kyle Field when Texas A&M took on LSU. Yeah. There are certainly times where home field gives you that extra bump, extra edge. I mean, again, as somebody who has been inside of Williams-Brice Stadium many, many times, I've seen it firsthand. But if you don't have the personnel, I mean, typically it really helps you out if the two teams are even, or maybe you're slightly better or just slightly worse, but still have comparable personnel. If you don't have the personnel to go toe-to-toe, and eventually football is a game to where the better team typically is going to win. I mean, again, I've seen this multiple times before we went on our crazy streak and all these runs of all these big-time home games producing these upsets. I mean, I saw it earlier in the year, guys. I was in the Swamp week 1 when Florida took on Miami, and a lot of the chatter going in that week was, man, it's the magic of the Swamp. It's going to be raucous. Well, the problem was Miami just had such superior personnel. That crowd quieted within 5 minutes of that game starting. So, I think if you have better personnel, a lot of times it can beat a loud crowd. But I think for South Carolina this season, the thing you got to keep in mind, because you do make a good point, they've had a couple big opportunities, haven't been able to come through. I mean, I tell anybody this, LSU, that game at Willie B, that's the loudest noon game I've ever heard in my entire life. That place was an insane asylum, legitimately. So the crowd did their part. But this is also the first against Texas A&M. This is the first home conference night game of the season. They've only had, I think, one other night game, and it was that game against Akron early in the year. So towels waving, sandstorm going. I think South Carolina does have comparable personnel. I think A&M top to bottom has better personnel, but I think it's comparable, and I think certainly the crowd could be the thing that pushes South Carolina over the edge on Saturday night.
Chris, there's an awful lot on the line in this game on Saturday. South Carolina fighting for bowl eligibility as they are pretty much every season when you're coming down the stretch. A&M fighting for potential CFP eligibility. ESPN FPI, and I know you retweeted it this week, A&M is sitting right there on the bubble of being a 50-50 team to make the CFP. Does losing to South Carolina push them too far back out of the mix where they can't get back into contention?
No, I don't think it'd be impossible for them to make it. They close out the season, I believe, with New Mexico, Auburn, and then that big showdown, the Lone Star Showdown against Texas. So if they were to beat Texas and go 10-2, I think a 10-2 SEC team more than likely gets in the college football playoff, especially with the resume they would have taken down the Longhorns. But certainly it puts their backs against the wall. And I think for Texas A&M, this is the one you'd obviously like to have. You'd like to follow up that LSU game. And this is the game, guys, in years past that A&M would typically lose. They haven't had problems in years past facing off against top 5 competition, top 10, taking down Alabama, beating whoever. But it's in these games, and I know against South Carolina, they've had the upper hand more years than not. But, guys, they've had games against Mississippi State and Auburn and in years past against what they felt like at the time was inferior competition, games they should have won, that A&M just went out there and laid a stinker. So I think this is one, you ask any Aggie fan, the LSU win was big, but this is the one that's going to kind of tell you, okay, are we in for a really special season, or are we in just for kind of a good season like we've seen in years past? And I actually heard you guys segment yesterday about the pressures that Shane Beamer and Dabo Sweeney are facing. And certainly for Beamer, man, I mean, this is one, listen, At this point, you're like a big hitter that keeps coming up with 2 outs and guys in scoring position. Like, are you ever going to cash in, man? It's just another huge opportunity at home. You need to start cashing in on these opportunities.
Chris, when you look at the SEC in totality, 2024, you cover them on a weekly or a daily basis. Which team has kind of been the team that you've been most disappointed with that haven't met your expectations in 2024?
Yeah, Cole, I'm going to give you a few if that's okay. Yep. The top 2 for me is got to be Auburn and Kentucky. I mean, especially Kentucky, guys. I feel really foolish at this point. I was pretty high on the Cats going in, had them around an 8-4 record. Just felt really good about the personnel, especially defensively. I don't think anybody could have seen it coming how bad Brock Vandagriff has been, and in turn, the offense has just been terrible. So they've been extremely disappointing. Again, I mentioned Auburn finally got off the schneid and beat that Kentucky team I just mentioned, but I felt like I had pretty conservative expectations for the Tigers, and I mean, they've even fallen short of those, right? I think getting to a bowl game now would be a huge success. But you know who I've been disappointed with is Ole Miss. They've been so underwhelming to me. I can't believe how underwhelming they've been, even in victories. Like, the moment we've gotten to conference play, they've just been all right. They've been okay. I saw them in person at LSU. They let that football game admittedly get away. Even against Oklahoma this past weekend, it's like they win, but they're down at halftime. Guys, they haven't scored 30 points or more in 4 straight games, which with those weapons and Jackson Dart, Lane Kiffin dialing it up just seems wrong. So I just feel like, guys, for the semblance of talent they have and all the hype they got in the preseason, they've been kind of a dud to me. And spoiler, I've got them going on the road this weekend and having some trouble in Fayetteville, to say the least.
Chris, so far through the season, Florida has beaten the teams they were supposed to beat and lost to the teams that they were supposed to lose to. Now, things get infinitely more difficult over the next 4 weeks for the Gators. Number 2, Georgia. Number 6, Texas. Number 16, LSU. Number 19, Ole Miss. How is the temperature changing on Billy Napier? I mean, we remember earlier in the season, it was announced that the buyout money was essentially pre-raised if they wanted to pull the trigger and get rid of him. But the season has gone kind of the way that they expected it to go if you just looked at the opponents they were going to play. So how have things changed for Billy Napier?
Yeah, Diesel, great question. So we're headed down to that game this weekend in Jacksonville for the cocktail party, which we'll only call it by its proper name, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I actually had a great conversation. You're catching me at a good time, Diesel. My good friend Nick De La Torre, who covers the Gators down there in Gainesville, does a great job in doing so. And I asked him that very question. Florida sits 4-3 right now. You mentioned the closing stretch they have, which is one of the toughest we've ever seen in college football history, even with Florida State being a complete dumpster fire. He kind of echoes what I said going in the season, too. If they get to 6 wins, Billy Napier is going to be back next year. I don't think a lot of fans are checked out on Billy, but fans don't fire coaches, guys. Administrations do and people behind the scenes. And from what I'm being told and what he told me even today, I don't think the administration wants to necessarily move off of Billy Napier. I don't think they want to pay the buyout. I don't think they want to lose out on the future of DJ Lagway in Gainesville and at least seeing what that looks like next year. So they've got to win games, obviously. They've got to find a way to get to a bowl game. I think if they were to go 5-7, they'd have to be super competitive in all these games they have left and then beat Florida State. Even then, I think it would be very 50-50 on him returning. But, guys, if they get to 6 wins, which would, again, be probably beating Florida State, and they'd have to upset a Georgia, a Texas, an LSU, and an Ole Miss. And realistically, I think an LSU and an Ole Miss. I don't even know if Georgia and Texas are really winnable games, but 2024, you never know. But I think there's still a pretty good chance he's back next year. And the thing is, guys, is this. You listen to interviews and you watch Florida and folks I talked to down there, he hasn't lost the locker room in any sense of the word. I mean, that team is really bought in. They're behind Billy Napier. So I think the seat is hot, but I don't think it's as hot as people might think, where it's like he's just a dead man walking. It's only a matter of time. Things can certainly go south, but there is a realistic path to Billy Napier being back next year.
Yeah, Chris, thank God fans don't make those decisions, because Kalen DeBoer would be out of a job. Ryan Day would be out of a job.
Dabo Sweeney?
Yeah, exactly.
Fans, yeah.
Chris, you said dead men walking. Is Hugh Freeze in your mind to that level yet?
No, he won't be until next year. I think it makes, obviously, next year a must-win for him. I think getting to 8 wins will probably be the minimum expectation next year. things are certainly – here's the thing that's saving Hugh Freeze, because I was going to say is things are certainly tumultuous and on rocky ground, but I think there's still a lot of people that believe in the way they are recruiting the young guys. I think, guys, there's this feeling right now that it's more on the fault of the old guys in the program, and they've got this crop of youngsters that, they're building around, that they feel like they're bringing in new blood, new culture, and, those things are all great, but it's got to play out on the field.
Yeah.
So, no, I wouldn't say he's a dead man walking, but certainly I think he and Brent Venables are the two guys we're going to talk about being on the hottest seats. Assuming if Billy Napier's back, then certainly we throw him in there. But Freeze and Venables, I would say the two hottest seats more than likely going into next season.
Chris, we were debating this yesterday, trying to figure out why LSU fell so far this week in the AP Top 25, falling 8 spots down to number 16 after, it wasn't a blowout win. It was a 2-score win or 2-score loss, to Texas A&M. Can you explain? I mean, Boise State is Boise State. They got a great running back. Alabama's looked iffy over the course of the season. So can you help me make a little sense of why LSU fell so far after the A&M loss?
Yeah, Diesel, it kind of feels like there's been people waiting on the downfall because LSU, I'm not going to sit here and say they've been winning games via smoke and mirrors, but they've been overcoming some mistakes by Garrett Nussmeier. And, again, I was at that LSU Ole Miss game, and he made some throws. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier, I mentioned on social media earlier this week, he's the pitcher that throws 100, but at times has no clue where it's
Ricky
going.
Vaughn.
He's Ricky Vaughn. He literally is. So I don't know if there's people that were kind of waiting on that downfall, and they're punishing LSU extra for losing that game in College Station, but I agree with you. I thought it was a big drop. And, I mean, guys, listen, Missouri's still ranked. So the AP poll in my mind is a complete joke.
Chris, get your Magic 8 Ball out for this question as we look to the fall of 2025. When you look at the senior quarterbacks in the SEC, which quarterback would you tell me has the best chance to be successful the quickest in the NFL?
That's a great question. Which guy right now going into next year? I would probably still go with Quinn Ewers in Texas. I would probably go with Quinn. I don't think he's a senior, but I think he's going to be out after this year. I'd probably still go Quinn. I think in the right system, the right scheme, which so much of it in the NFL obviously is getting in the right situation. Just ask Bryce Young and Charlotte how that's going. But, getting in the right situation is important. I like Quinn Ewers' skill set a lot, man. He's under a heck of a microscope at Texas. But, watching him in person, I saw him complete 17 straight passes, and I like Quinn a lot, so I'll go with Quinn Ewers. I think he's got the best chance for success the quickest.
Chris, I know that we talk predominantly football with you on this show, but hey, when those preseason AP Top 25 numbers came out for the basketball side of things, the SEC looks to be dominant again this year. Alabama's there, Tennessee, A&M is in there, Auburn is there. Of course, a huge season potentially. Really kind of put the boot on the throat of the ACC and college basketball as a whole. I know you probably haven't spent a ton of time thinking about basketball yet, but do you have any general early thoughts about how the SEC season is going to go?
Yeah, ironically, Diesel, and I really appreciate you bringing this up. Shameless plug. We're actually dropping tonight over on YouTube podcast our 2024-2025 SEC basketball season preview. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Again, the season starts Monday, man. It's never too early to talk it, especially when the season's around the corner. But we spent some time. Again, we got about a 45-minute preview dropping. I think it's going to be a heck of a race at the top. You mentioned there's 9 teams ranked in the AP Top 25 preseason. That includes Texas, who's obviously a new member. The battle at the top is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, John Calipari being at Arkansas has got to be one of the top storylines in the conference. Mark Pope over at Kentucky. Alabama's got arguably their best team in school history. How does Tennessee replace Dalton Knecht? Can Auburn get the guard play to make a run this year? Then you go down the list of who's going to be the South Carolina guys of last year, right? They came out of nowhere and shot up and made the tournament and everything. Also, how does Lamont Paris's team look this year? You lose Michie Johnson, Ohio State, to the portal. You picked up Nick Pringle. Colin Murray Boyles is back. So they've got something nice to build around. I think teams like Ole Miss, Florida, Georgia even could be upstart squads that surprise. So certainly to your point, man, we got great coaches, great players, and it's going to be a great 2024-2025 season. I think, honestly, this could be the best season of SEC basketball that we've ever had. And I don't say that, hyperbole. I really think so with the talent, the coaches, and it only gets better. So you got to commend the SEC for actually investing in college basketball, and it's paying off major dividends. We're excited over at SEC Unfiltered to cover it.
Chris, before we let you go, do you have a riveting upset pick for us?
Well, I teased it earlier, Cole. I'm going with the Hogs in Fayetteville to beat Ole Miss straight up.
There you go.
Arkansas, I believe, right now, I just checked before I came on, is +7. Unfortunately, there were no 20 or 30-point spreads. I felt confident and tried to take a major. At some point, guys, we get to the end of the season, you're like, well, I got to take a major swing to make up some ground.
Yeah, we've been doing that for 5 weeks now.
I know. Unfortunately, I wasn't like the guy that took Kennesaw State at +27.5 or whatever it was. So we're all trying to be that guy. But, yeah, give me Arkansas +7. I think they win that game straight up.
Yeah, Chris, we all lost together because out of 120 picks last week, only 2 of them got it correct, and one of them was by sheer accident. Sheer accident.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start playing some of those Tuesday, Wednesday games. There might be some good value there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Great stuff, Chris. We always appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Cole Diesel, you're the best, man. Keep up the great work.
Cole, one of my favorite things about last night's Game 4, not that the Yankees came back and won and made this thing a little more interesting series.
An actual series. Yeah.
Is the fact that 2 idiot Yankee fans got ejected midway through the first inning. And I can only imagine the amount of money they paid for those tickets. I remember we were seeing at Dodger Stadium what tickets in that corner right there by the right field foul pole cost. Yeah. They were not cheap. They were like $1,000 a pop.
I don't know, man. I think they're smart. I mean, they're probably famous now.
Yeah, they're famous now. Austin
for the wrong reasons.
Capobianco and his buddy John Peter were ejected. Well, the Yankees have now announced that their tickets for Game 5 are going to go to a pediatric cancer patient and his parent, caregiver, whatever.
So they definitely won't be able to reach over for the ball then.
No, they won't be.
Sorry. That was,
oh,
I'm sorry.
Bro.
Sorry. You set me up. Why? That was your fault.
Does it get tired or because they're frail?
I don't know.
Big announcement earlier today. Cole, Malden's Bridgeway Station will be the new home of a 10,000-seat mixed-use stadium and the future home of the Greenville Triumph and Liberty.
So that means concerts can be there.
Yeah, concerts, festivals, jamborees, maybe. Who knows?
So 10,000, how does that compare to like Furman? I mean, let's see. Alex Guest over there in the corner. Do you know?
Take a wild guess, Alex. Pretty close. Paladin Stadium holds 16,000 people.
Oh, so it's not that big.
Though I was there for homecoming. They might have been lucky to have 6,000 people there. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Probably I'd have been lucky to have 6,000 there. Wofford Stadium. What's Wofford Stadium?
I'm going to say it's less than Furman.
Wofford Stadium holds 13,000. So a little bit smaller than, Gibbs. A little bit smaller than Gibbs Stadium, which is perfect for the Greenville Triumph.
Here's a 10,000-seat stadium, Dorman High School.
There you go.
10,000 seats.
Dorman's lopsided as hell, though. You got
10,000.
You got 9,500 on one side and 500 on the other.
Yeah, probably be more. You would think the soccer. I don't know how it'll be, laid out, but
I mean, I know that you have some connections over there at Dorman. Who designed that stadium? Really, who designed that stadium?
It's a good question.
I know that there was a hill there, so it just felt natural to put it there.
Though, right?
But you got this huge sideline.
Yeah.
And a huge press box. It's beautiful, beautiful stadium. I'm not talking junk about the home side at all, but the other side, it's people turning around Lowe's hardware buckets and sitting over there on the other side.
Oh my god,
it's rough, man. I'm just being real. Did they think they were gonna size it up on the other side and have a?
Well, there's nobody
have a 18,000 seat stadium. No, it's weird. It's weird. By the way, Rob Gronkowski, because of course he is, he's college buddies with that fan, with Austin Capobianco.
The fat one or the one that
the chunky, the fat one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said fat. I didn't want to say fat. I didn't want to agree with fat because I don't shame people on this.
No, there was
the
no
only
shame.
person I shame is you.
No, I think you should be proud to be fat. I mean, I don't think fat's a derogatory word. I mean, I think a lot of people are fat like myself, and I have no shame in it. I mean,
you're not fat. You're thick.
I'm thick
with one C. You don't get the second C. You're not there yet, bro. You got to keep going. It's firing season, Cole. We know last week a handful of coaches and coordinators got fired. Well, West Virginia has just fired their defensive coordinator, Jordan Leslie. He is gone, replaced by Jeff Coons. How about that? UTSA are 7-point underdogs against Memphis, and they're the home team. And head coach Jeff Traylor went off on some weird diatribe about the fact that Memphis has so much more money in NIL to play around with.
I don't know what his deal was.
Yeah, he's like, well, coaching matters, stadium matters, locker room matters,
all right,
facility
Jeff.
matters.
Whatever, Jeff.
But money matters more. Money matters more. Jeff Traylor, you're in San Antonio, bro. You can't get any more NIL money out of San Antonio.
All that oil money down there.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest cities in the state.
And by the way, Diesel, there's 2 games tonight. College. I know you don't like these midweek games, but I do. I like them. Jacksonville State Liberty, 7:00. Could be a good game. Kennesaw State, who was last week's upset, right? Western Kentucky, 7:30. That's a 24-point spread there. So the 7:00 game, Jacksonville State might be good.
2 Tolos, by the way, who took that game. Brian Pettit took Kennesaw State over Western Kentucky, and Tyler from Easley, who is new to the challenge. Welcome, Tyler from Easley.
Diesel, coming up on tomorrow's show, I have a piece of audio of Xavier Legette. You and I are going to do our best of translating what Xavier Legette said. It's incredible audio. That's tomorrow on the Wire to Wire.
Tolo.